All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regular meeting of the School Committee of the Town of Foxborough. Tonight's February 22nd, 2016. I'd like to welcome everybody back from school vacation. We have a full agenda tonight. We're going to start with visitors, approval of minutes. Then we're going to get an update on the opioid challenge in the community. Selectman Jim DeVellis is joining us to help us with that. We're going to look at substance abuse prevention and intervention in the schools and some of the programs we have going on currently. We're then going to receive a mid-year technology progress report, followed by an update on enrichment and challenge. And then around that time, we'll be joined by our DECA team to have our teaching and learning highlight tonight. Real exciting what the first-year club, the DECA club's doing. Ms. Spinelli will give us a mid-cycle review, how she feels the year's going. Mr. Yukna will give us a budget update. We'll then have our second reading of policy JKAA, which is with regard to physical restraint of students. We are then going into executive session tonight for the purpose of discussing negotiation strategies with union personnel, and specifically tonight we're looking at the contract for the Foxborough Maintenance Workers Association. And we will return to open session, at which time we anticipate voting on the proposed 2015 to 2018 Foxborough Maintenance Workers Association Collective Bargaining Agreement. We'll take up other matters, and then we will adjourn. So let's start, as we always do, with any visitors who'd like to be recognized. Seeing none, we will take up approval of minutes. We have, I think, a couple of sets of minutes. We'll start with the regular meeting minutes from January 25th.
The only change I had was on the second page where it says first reading of policy JKAA. We're revising the policy to change the name to restraint prevention, so I think we should change that.
So it just
Even if
reads.
it's not approved, that's fine.
Well, the new policy title is restraint prevention, so
Yep, I actually wondered about that, so, okay.
I think so.
Yep.
Anybody else have any comments about the minutes?
Motion to accept as amended.
I second.
Okay, just under discussion before we vote then, I just also had a quick comment. At the end, Mr. Uden announced he will not be running for re-election to the school committee. It bothered me, Janet, that stood alone, so I think we should just add a sentence saying that the committee expressed their thanks to Mr. Uden for his service. He stood alone. He always stands alone. Can I get that motion again, with just as amended, or did you say it that way?
Should we accept the minutes of January 25th, 2016 as amended by Tina and Bruce?
Great.
I'll second that motion.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0, thank you. And then we have the minutes from the meeting we had with the advisory committee. That was February 3rd. Any comments?
Motion to accept as presented.
I'll second.
And wait 2 seconds.
I heard Bevy first.
You can give
Thank
to
you, Bevy. Any further discussion? Bevy, all those in favor? 5-0, great.
Oh, did I leave you off? Sorry.
That's right.
Yes, Dr. Berdos was present, so we should add her.
Okay.
Oops.
She was there. I apologize for
How
that.
do I rescind that motion?
Well, we can rescind that motion, and go ahead.
Motion to reconsider the motion of accepting the AdCom minutes of February 3rd, please. Then we vote on that, and then we vote on that again,
Sure.
right? So
I'll
it's
second
a
your
second.
motion to rescind.
Any further discussion? All those in favor to rescind?
Right.
Go ahead, Steve.
Motion to accept February 3rd AdCom school committee discussion minutes as amended by Tina, adding Dr. Berdos to the list of attendees.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Great. Moving to welcoming Selectman DeVellis to the table. I suspect the superintendent has some comments she'd like to make. I just want to thank Jim in advance for his leadership once again in the community, and that of all the selectmen, really. And I know they stated up front that they'd be coming around to the different groups. And tonight's their night to come talk to us, which I appreciate. So, Jim, if you don't mind coming to the Table of Honor. Debbie, any comments you'd like to add?
Well said. I just want to make sure I say, I appreciate the day after the selectmen's meeting, Jim reached out to me and said that they would be doing this, and I think it's great that we all stay in the same loop. And I think what Jim and I talked about is very interested in hearing their community update. And then our next agenda item is related. And then hopefully Mr. DeVellis can stay for that. And then what we'd like to do is end by asking what the schools can do in partnership with them. I think that'd be, if we could take the two items together, if you don't mind.
Great.
I think that'd be great.
Thank you, Superintendent Spinelli. Chairman Bruce, thank you, members of the commission. Where to start? So, January 22nd, we brought an initiative, the selectmen brought it to the table to get some feedback and then give some guidance to Town Manager Bill Keegan on the, people call it the drug crisis or the heroin crisis. So as you know, over the last year or so, throughout state news and local news, there's been a lot of discussion, starting with the opioids and what, as you know, you may know what opioids are, painkillers that are prescribed from doctors, dentists, and what have you. It starts off that way, and I'm just speaking in general terms. So, a patient starts on the opioids, and then when the prescription ends, it's a very, very, very addictive drug, and they start to beg, borrow, and steal to try to stay on the opioids, Percocet, Vicodin, what have you. When that ends and then they can no longer get that off the street or it becomes very expensive, the next step in their minds is they go to heroin. And nobody wakes up and says, I'm going to try heroin. It's just that it's such a disease or an addiction that they can't help themselves and they end up on heroin. And there's cases starting in the early teens or younger and going all the way up to the sky's the limit on the age. So it's in Foxborough. And there's no denying it, and there's different statistics all over the place, but it is in Foxborough whether we like it or not. So, and we've had our share of deaths in Foxborough as well. Still a stigma. It's a little hush-hush. Last week I was at a funeral for a Foxborough resident, and you name it, and all the towns are dealing with the same thing. So we're not independent. We're better than some, worse than some, but we're kind of right in the middle on the statistics. So within a short time, how the state's dealing with it, they've pumped in about $27 million on a task force and studies, and they've focused on prevention, intervention, treatment, and recovery, and it's that whole cycle. And if you look around at the different towns and the cities, how they're dealing with it on the local level, I'll give you a for instance. If you go to the town of Mansfield, a mile south from here, a bordering town, they just had a meeting in January, a forum, and that was put together by the Qualters Middle School Parent Association that brought it forward. And I didn't go to that, but I read some of the quotes. So the police chief there said, and this is his quote, "In 20 years of police work, I've never seen anything like this. The overdoses due to heroin and other opioids are on the rise, and no family is immune." Last Wednesday, the town to the north, Walpole, I was invited to a session that they had. The governor came and spoke, and the police chief put that one on. And it was interesting because I was looking at, he had a nice slideshow, PowerPoint, and I was looking at all the pictures, and it showed a drug addict jumping over the counter at Dunkin' Donuts and, the surveillance cameras, robbing somebody at an ATM, stealing from the credit union, and then they had bags and needles and all the paraphernalia. And then what he said was shocking. All of these pictures are from Walpole, and they're recent. And what stuck in my mind was he said, we've run out of handcuffs a long time ago to address this. It's, the old, Scarface with the cocaine and the machine guns and the war on drugs, those days are over. In his opinion, the best way to handle this is education and awareness. So, and if you consider Walpole on one side and Mansfield, we're directly in the middle. So even if you think it's not here and you have young kids, or even if you don't have young kids, you think you're not affected, to get awareness to keep it out anyways is one way to look at it. And I'm sure you've seen the local news of the cars getting broken into, and so whether we want to realize it or not, it's affecting all of us. So why am I here? So on January 22nd, I prepared a letter, and I'll pass this around. I should have sent it earlier.
Thank you, Jim.
So in a nutshell, what that letter is, it says draft on it, and it was brought to the January 22nd. And that meeting that we had last month was not a meeting to invite department heads or to invite the school committee or any of that. It was to sit with the selectmen and say, this letter is addressed to department heads, and it says, look, there is an issue in the state, it's in our town, let's send a representative from each department, Board of Health, Social Services, Rec Department, VSO, the Veteran Service Officer, the police, the fire, the first responders, and the school, to put our heads together. And what I'm finding is if I speak to a teacher, they have one perception. If I speak to Michael Johns over at the VSO, he's got his perception, and he's dealing with the veterans and that issue. I talk to the rec department, and you say, well, you know, those kids are real little at camp. How are they involved? Well, the parent is an addict that's dropping off the kids. So they're dealing, so everyone has a little bit of a different perception. They're all doing their part. If you ask the police, and I completely agree with them, they can't arrest their way out of this. They need a community input and awareness. So what I'm asking the committee, and all you do, and I'm looking forward to it, I know you guys have it in the schools, not the heroin, but the advocacy and the awareness and stuff, share with the town your perception, the way that you handle it, so we can learn from you. Similar to Deb, when we put together the group for the sexual abuse awareness, it was 7 people from all different towns. We learned a tremendous amount from your superintendent on how you do stuff, how you track stuff, how you train, and that brought the whole group up a different level. And Deb Spinelli walked into the group not knowing how social services deal with it, and I'm sure you learned something. So that's what I'm looking for. If you could either assign somebody, obviously not tonight or no votes or anything, but think about it. The town departments, after the January 22nd meeting, got together. They had a representative from the Attorney General's office that spoke to the department heads. And I didn't go intentionally because I wanted the discussion without selectmen involvement, but the feedback I got was very positive. Our police chief is very forward-thinking. He's got some ideas that have to do with the school, and it was a very positive first step. So I guess what I'm asking is, moving forward, could the schools get involved with the town side and then collectively work towards some type of an awareness program throughout the whole town?
It's great. I'm sure we'd be happy to do that.
We learn from a lot of things. It takes a village for just about everything, especially this, I think. It takes maybe an even bigger village.
So if you want, if I'll stick around and you guys are going to talk about the programs that you have going on.
That would be great. So just
Yeah.
as a transition, I think
Yeah.
that you'll hear from our people. We have not had a case of a student yet affected by, and I say yet because we're preparing for the eventuality, I would say. But we do, without saying much more, we do have students affected by this in their homes. So I can't say this hasn't touched us yet. We just haven't yet had a student with an opioid problem from that student that we know of. But we have had, we do have students who are faced with challenges related to addiction, opioids in their homes. That's fair. We can, want to do some questions and we'll invite Linda up here?
Well, does anyone have any questions for Jim, or should we invite our other presentation up, and then maybe Jim can stay at the table there alongside, and then we can take it as a group?
Sounds good.
When you were looking for a school representative, you talking about teachers or department heads or a school committee?
I think what we said at the selectmen, it doesn't have to be the department head. For instance, like the police, they may have a special officer for that, or the Board of Health may have, or social services might not be the director, but somebody that's more aware and more. So I'm not looking for any title or specific person. Somebody that has ambition, that can share information back and forth and kind of keep it going, and hopefully come back to your group and give public updates once in a while.
That'd be great. All right. right, let's invite Linda Mealy to join you. Linda is our nurse leader for the district,
I'll
Jim.
sit behind you, might be a little more comfortable.
Yeah, so she's our nurse leader, she oversees our nursing department, and I would say compliments to Linda, we've had one update with her already this year, but she took a very proactive approach at this right at the beginning of the year when she took over that role, and I'm gonna turn over to her to talk about the school nursing role and what you've done.
Hi, nice to be here. I'd like to share with you how the Foxborough school nurses have prepared themselves in the event of a life-threatening opioid overdose in the schools. The Department of Public Health did recommend last year that each school district in the state have a protocol written by their school physician authorizing the school to administer Narcan in the schools. That's nasal naloxone to individuals who are experiencing a drug overdose. They want all the schools to have stock supplies of the Narcan maintained by the school nurse for this purpose. So last October, the school nurses, we have a monthly meeting with Dr. Giuliano, who's our school physician. So we had a meeting with him along with the Rentham school nurses, and we received a training by Ann Claver. She's the Department of Public Health Southeastern Regional Nurse Consultant in Narcan Administration. We were taught to recognize symptoms of opiate overdose, demonstrate how to give Narcan, and care of the individual before and after the emergency medical services arrive. It's given intranasally, and it reverses the effect of an opiate overdose. It's now stocked in all the schools. All the nurses have it in their offices, and it's available for use by the nurses for anyone who needs it, including students, staff members, visitors, any guest in the school who needs it. Also, another thing that we're doing is, in order to address unhealthy substance use in the schools, we're participating in the SBIRT program, which is a screening program that will be mandated for 2 grades in the future, one in the middle school and one in the high school. The SBIRT stands for Screening, Brief Intervention, and Referral for Treatment. I did apply for a grant recently, and I was awarded a grant for this initiative by the Department of Public Health. On March 3rd, as the program coordinator, I'll be attending training along with Sharon Kelly, our high school nurse. Also attending will be the high school principal, the social worker, and a member of the wellness staff. These people are all involved with all the students and if you refer them for treatment, and they know all the students in the school and what's going on with them. Screening will take place in the fall for the 10th graders. So we're already signed up now for the this day, which will be March 3rd, and the screening will take place in the fall for the 10th graders. Letters are going to be sent out to all the parents. They're going to be informing the parents of the screenings, and the parents can opt out if they want to. And letters will also be going out to all the students, so they will know that they're going to be screened in the fall. Our goal is to identify students who have any substance abuse, alcohol or drug abuse, and then refer them for treatment if needed. Per Department of Public Health regulations, the nurses already do a lot of screenings in the school. We do hearing and vision screenings, heights and weights, and postural screenings. So this is a new screening that will be done along with the other screenings for the students, and it's one more tool that will help us to assess the health and well-being of our students and provide treatment where needed. So we have all this
Can we
coming
just
up.
pause for a minute, because that's new. So congratulations on securing the grant for us. And the timing couldn't be better, really, with all of the things that have been going on.
And I think the state's been really trying to put a lot of things in place for all of us to deal with this. So they came up with this, and
Right.
in fact, the dates just came up today for all this for the spring. So we're getting right on board, and we're gonna start doing this.
And
in the
Linda, you said
fall.
it's detects any substance or screens any substance abuse. Does that include the opioids then?
Opioids, yes, substance abuse, alcohol, any drugs.
I think we have a question or comment behind you.
How exactly do you do this screening, and then what do you do if somebody does test positive? Is it a swab? Is it a?
No, it's not
Is it just
it's more an interview of the student.
Okay.
It's going to be a screening, so we're going to talk to the students. And Sharon Kelly will be doing the screenings as the high school nurse. And I did go to a meeting about it, and they said they want people who know the students, so the students be more likely to open up to them. So it's going to be done in the nurse's office, in a private office, and they're going to talk to the students, and there's going to be multiple questions. You're going to ask the student, have you had any recent substance abuse? You know, when's the last, have you had any alcohol? Have you had any drugs or taken any pills or anything? And the screening will proceed with several questions like that.
Yeah.
And if there's any positive answers, it will go on to the next level. And then if they, then we would let their parents know and refer them for treatment after that.
Okay, so, 1 second, but if they're 18,
Bring this back in.
I mean, I guess 10th graders aren't 18.
Mm-hmm.
There's that, this whole HIPAA thing is one of the laws that we're
Mhm.
trying to change also, because when people have an overdose or they're an addict, the HIPAA prohibits doctors to communicate with their families. So with your HIPAA and a nurse, I mean, I guess if they
Mhm.
sign the waiver, it's where's the HIPAA fall into this?
Let me just interrupt and make a comment. I think it's hard for our public audience probably to hear some of the discussion coming out of the back. So, no, we want to entertain the questions and thoughts as well. But Linda, is it safe to say that some of the types of questions that I think are fair questions are being asked will be explained when we get to that process?
Mm-hmm. Well, I will be
No,
going through the
Linda.
training.
And Linda.
Linda,
Linda.
you're gonna have
I'll
to
find
look
out
this way.
a lot
But
more about that.
I think, in all fairness, this is the Department of Public Health recommendation that schools do. So they haven't been trained yet in how to administer the assessment. This has all just happened in the last couple of weeks. So I think it's fairer to say, let's let our staff go and get the training on how these are conducted and come back. But we're not making this up. This is the Department of Public Health. It's a recommendation as to what they want us to do in schools. And Linda's plan is to start at the high school, which makes sense, and that eventually the same type of screening and assessment will also be in place at 1 grade at the middle school. So that's where we are now, and I don't think we know enough to answer the detailed types of questions. I also think people should identify themselves.
And yet, I think the questions are, give an indication of
really
things
good.
that we'll need to address, like process, like student privacy, HIPAA concerns. So I think they're fair questions. I think to Mrs. Spinelli's point, we're gonna figure this out and publicize what the process will be. But I think you give us some sense of some of the questions that are out there, and I think that's fair. Linda, did you have more you wanted to share, or was that the essence of it?
No, that was the essence. If there's any questions about any of those things.
Let me just invite Mr. DeVellis back up then, and,
I just wanted to ask her a question.
yeah, well, go ahead.
I
I'm sorry,
worry about
Ron.
the validity of the questions. I guess they have nothing to balance that with right now, but is a middle school kid going to admit that they had a drink or smoked pot? Or, I mean, I have, I have children.
The children will know that they're going to have the screening done.
Right.
And who knows, some of them might want to reach out for help. And this might be their opportunity.
Okay.
And that's why we want people to do it who know the students, so they might feel comfortable opening up to them.
Okay.
There's no other way we can really get the information out of them unless we caught them in the act or something,
Right.
so.
And they'd know the date you're taking the test and all that. Right?
Mhm.
They'd know ahead of time.
Yeah, they'll know when the screening's coming, yeah.
Mrs. Myers-Pacla, did you want to join and share some perspective from the high school as well?
And I think if he doesn't mind, I'll put him on the spot, if we could have Officer Azevedo up here as well. He's our school resource officer. And I see Joe Heinricher, nice of Joe to come, and we have Chief O'Leary just in case. So we have all kinds
all
of people
covered.
here. Whatever the question is, the appropriate answerer. Oh, and Sharon Kelly is here, our high school nurse, so that's great.
Our whole village.
The village. All right, so what we thought we would do next is, in addition to talking about all the good work the school nurses are doing, that Diana and Frank, along with anyone else who wants to weigh in, could talk about what do we do for substance abuse education and prevention at the high school, because that's where our efforts have been for quite a number of years. So, over to you.
I would have to say that we are fortunate to have our health curriculum in place. And so having a 9th and 10th grade curriculum is really the basis of where the education comes in. And all of our 9th graders and all of our 10th graders do participate in the program. So the 9th grade curriculum is very brief in talking about marijuana, alcohol can be gateways to other drugs that can possibly come along, and that's in the 9th grade curriculum. And then once we move into the 10th grade curriculum, they have a whole unit on substance abuse, of which they do a project, they do research on it, additional information to come out, answering questions, et cetera, et cetera. So that's probably the core in the high school, where we are working with students. But I was thinking about this and a couple of other things had come to mind. We have a social worker, and our students are very open to talking to the social worker that we have here in the building. Our guidance staff as well. And through guidance, the social worker, the nurse, and a variety of other individuals, we meet either every other week or about every third week for what we call mental health meetings, which are really meetings about how are the kids doing and what's happening. And so often that is not just the student who has an issue, but the issue isn't with them personally, it is with the family, as we've mentioned. So, it's a wide variety of different things that can come out at that meeting, and what we can do then to put a plan into place, or what we need to do for next steps for that particular individual. If there are those next steps, sometimes it's just awareness. And then we also participate in the risk survey that we're now doing every 2 years with our students. And similar to this, we might say, well, the questions are going to be asked, and who's really going to say, who's going to be honest. But what we found from the data that's come from the risk surveys are that students are really pretty open and honest. And what we have found, and what I really believe that we need to focus on, is the positive end of it. Because our students, there's a belief that more students are participating in certain activities, when the reality is, if you take a look at who says I am, those numbers are very low. So it's what is the norm, and we really need to do that social norming a lot more, I think, and bringing that out, because of course it's like the news. What comes out, it's always the negative. When you've got 95% of kids doing really good things, it's that 5% that, is all of a sudden blown up, and then it becomes everybody. So it's really that focus. We're also fortunate enough, too, to have Frank on staff with us as well, and being able to help on his end of it.
Luckily, in the schools in Foxborough, we've been fortunate enough where we haven't had any issues involving opiate abuse. Like Mr. DeVella said, it is in our community. As police officers, we've been trained. We've learned how to assess someone who's had an overdose. We've learned how to treat someone who's had an overdose. We've had training in Narcan. We carry Narcan in all our cruises. All officers on the police department have been trained in that for us to be able to deal with situations like that. But like I said, luckily, nothing prevalent in the high school as of yet. We did discuss with Chief and I a possible program coming in, which Mrs. Spinelli mentioned earlier. So as far as that prevention, we're still working on a program to get that out to the kids. But that's what we have so far. We've been fortunate with no major issues.
Agreed.
Good to be prepared.
Always.
Then-
Scary.
Yeah.
It's a scary society problem.
I know we're talking about the high school specifically right now, but our education on addiction starts much, much earlier than that in our health and wellness curriculum. I mean, we go back to the elementary school, and
Yes, we do.
we do Red Ribbon Week, and there are things that we're starting with age-appropriate discussions, because
Correct.
it is important to have this conversation begin early on,
Right.
and not just for, the little kids. I mean, for little kids who might be feeling the effects of addiction in their homes, who might be seeing it with older siblings or cousins or other loved ones or parents, you don't know. But we do begin pretty early on.
Right.
I think is it grade
We do. I
2?
think it's second.
Yeah, I think
it's
it's second
second.
grade.
We're
Run the Red
remembering,
Ribbon
I
program
know
in
we
second.
talked about this, we definitely
Yeah.
did.
First or second.
So I had put the example of the 10th grade unit because it's so meaty.
It is.
In their packet to see, but it does start early and developmentally appropriate. As the children learn and grow, it does sort of cycle back, and we do complete it. And we all know sometimes it sticks, sometimes if it doesn't speak to them at the moment, it may fall by the wayside, which is why we pick it back up in another grade level and keep that spiral going.
But I think it's important to know that we are trying to teach our kids not just not to use it, and not going back to just say no and Nancy Reagan, that we're teaching them about what drugs can do to your body, what the dangers of addiction are, including, gambling. We talked about that
That's in the
years
curriculum
ago. And how to recognize in other people someone who might need help. It's particularly, our elementary school students are getting some education, but our middle school students are becoming much more aware of what's going on around them with their friends, with older siblings and other loved ones, and you know, those children and students might be more inclined to reach out to our school psychologists and guidance department.
good
And
point.
I think it's just another area where the education of our students can spill over and help an entire family and therefore our whole community. So
That would be the hope.
I think so. I think it's
Yeah.
valuable.
That's all good points. Agreed.
But it is very detailed what they're getting in 10th grade. I have a 10th grader, so much to his chagrin, his mother's been interrogating him. But he just finished health. He did his whole semester of health in first and second terms. So he's answered a lot of my questions and you know, but I got a lot more detail from the actual curriculum that we were provided
But
tonight.
I'm glad you said all that
But-
detail, though, because in our experience,
Yeah.
it's not just the one shot that
Right.
makes any difference, because they may or may not remember what Red Ribbon Day is for, or Red Ribbon
Right.
Week, but the revisiting that subject as they grow
Right.
with more depth and more purpose is what really sustains resistance skills, or develops resistance skills. It really isn't the one-time only, you know, an event. So that's what we're working toward and have always worked toward, because, let's face it, this is a new type of crisis, but we've always had substance abuse issues to address and to work toward education and prevention. So this definitely puts a different spin on it and has a whole different set of concerns, because, as Mr. DeVellis points out, it often starts with a legal medical prescription. So it just adds another dimension of an issue. But that's what we have felt works better towards prevention, is ongoing and sustained education.
And just to let you know, I did have a conversation with our trainer as well, because again, when you mention injuries, and so often it is a prescription that's given, and then from there it leads on. And just asked the question, and she said, no, there hasn't been a conversation that she's had in all the time that she's been here with the kids with the injuries, that has come up to her. And of course, she would have reported. But it was an interesting dialogue that she and I were having too.
But, I mean, even there is an opportunity perhaps for even more education, even if the trainer
Absolutely.
has a conversation, okay, your child's just had this surgery, you know, these are some signs you should look for as a parent of a student who is taking painkillers for their either sports-related injury or their wisdom
I was gonna
teeth
say, your
getting
wisdom
pulled,
teeth is
or,
very
you know, anything can have a
hydrocodone.
broken bone.
Well,
So-
Joe, I didn't mean to interrupt,
No,
but.
that's okay.
Joe Heinrecher and I were actually speaking
Yeah.
today, and Joe, if you don't mind me saying, he had some knee surgery, and again, you know, has a prescription that's given to him, and Joe said, I didn't like how it felt, but it's up in the medicine cabinet. So how many people at home still have that script up there in the medicine cabinet, and you're either
Police
waiting for the day
department.
to turn it in, or whatever it might be, and, you know, it's kind of a open place for anybody to go to, and I think sometimes we forget about that part of it, that we need to dispose of it as soon as possible.
I think you
too.
can all the time now, right?
Is
that
it all the
correct?
time you can
Isn't there a
turn it?
box in the lobby now?
I think it's,
I don't think there's a date anymore. is
yeah,
there?
we usually have specific dates, times where we have an actual drug take-back box.
Okay,
I know we had at least once this year so far. As far as the next one, I'm not sure.
okay. I don't know what I thought, okay.
Debbie, did you have any more for the presentation?
No, I just feel, the one thing I do feel good about is all these layers you're describing, including the trainer that she brought up. We're trying to have as many layers as we can to dealing with substance abuse, whether it's opioids or other ones that have been around longer. And that, you know, you never know which layer is going to either surface the problem or address the problem, or that's going to send a message, you know, which of us or which program is the layer that puts that thought in somebody's brain that, wait a minute, I need to think about this, or maybe I should talk to somebody about this. So, as everything else, the more layers we have, the more chance we have of a positive approach and prevention, at least in the, you know, up to age 18 when we have them. Because I think to Frank's point and Jim's and so many other people, if this is becoming more prevalent in the, I'll just say in the post-high school age, then could this filter down to us, and it has in other places. So if we can just keep them safe while they're here, and that would be help, and maybe have people go on with a healthier understanding of it. That's the hope.
We provide parent education in so many areas, and cyberbullying, and that just comes to mind as, you know, and we have parenting experts come in and talk to us about how to talk to your teen about virtually anything, and We have technology night that helps, untechno savvy people like me understand what our kids are doing in school. This seems to be another way that we can help educate not just our students but our parents about what is going on in the schools and in society, in our community.
Any comments, Steve?
It might be framed as a question. I think what I just heard is that we have an excellent administrative program on noticing and observing these types of things, and we at least have a mile of razor wire and a moat around our school and our public school district for these types of things with professionals watching the law. And then to Selectman DeVellis's point, are we talking about extending that program that we have now that was just presented into further discussion with what Jim was talking about?
This might be a good segue.
Okay?
Yes.
Because, this is, he said we can't police our way out of it. The federal government just put $600 million towards it. But we need to come at it with a sledgehammer, I think.
Right.
With
And
a
there are
bunch
more
of
steps
different
too.
other
I know
things. I've
Chief
been very
O'Leary,
outspoken
Chief
about
O'Leary and I are
everything
meeting
on this.
tomorrow morning, and we're gonna
Yeah.
hear more about programs that he has in mind, so we're just not ready yet for that
Uh-huh.
tonight, but there's certainly a lot more going on, so we can have Jim coming back.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Diana.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so one thought, kind of piecing the different things I'm hearing. I have two kids that just recently went through the high school, and I've got one in 8th grade. And I've been to a bunch of sport nights, that they're all involved in sports. I remember concussion training. I remember bullying. I don't remember anything on opioids. And maybe I missed it, but to be honest with you, December of 2014 is we had a resident that came and talking about the Narcan. The question was, when is your first responders going to have Narcan for opioids? And right over my head, I had no idea what she was talking about. So maybe I missed it, but there's a gap between when the kids leave school and the fact that the parents aren't sitting in the classroom. So whatever you're teaching to the kids doesn't always get back to the adults. But it's that gray area of how do you educate the adults of what's going on with the kids so we can be advocates for them.
So a parent education
would
program
go-
that
yeah.
maybe we could jointly sponsor.
Yeah, because unless you can read it in a book, or you can, unless you sit down with the situation, if you know, not to phrase it, but if you know an addict, you learn tons from that. So the school, the adults, the Board of Health, all the getting together, but listening to addicts, and I know you've had
We have had speakers, like an
Herron,
alcoholic.
We had
Chris
Chris
Herron
Herron.
in here, yeah.
We
which-
also had another one that had went to jail. He killed his friend in a car accident.
Right.
Yes.
That was many years
Yep.
ago, maybe when Juliet was here.
Yeah.
So they have had speakers like
Yeah.
that for the sports nights.
Yeah. So, I missed it for those 4 years, so maybe we can boost it up a little bit, because it is changed. This last year is like no other year. The last 2 years is what I'm hearing from everybody that's dealing with it, that we have never seen this before, so time to take a second look at getting that information out.
Melissa?
Like you're saying about the adults, if you had a speaker come to the students, it makes it, like, a speaker makes a huge impact. Like, health classes, yes, like, I learned a lot during health class, like, 9th and 10th grade. Like, in 11th and 12th grade, yes, we know about we don't take health class, but if we had a speaker come in, like, that was an addict or anything like that, like, it makes a large impact. It, like, really, like Chris Herron, like, my freshman year, it was the year before us, and, like, we heard stories about that. Like, that stayed in their heads. I feel like if we had a speaker, it'd make a big impact.
And you never saw him, your grade level?
No, but, like, we all heard about him, and we all remembered him. Like, and we didn't even see him.
So that was 5 years ago then?
Yes.
So you were
Or
in grade-
it was only 11th and 12th.
Okay.
It was like
Yeah,
a
it was
certain,
just a couple of- it
certain
was just a
age.
couple
Yeah,
years
it was
ago.
the 9th and
Okay.
10th graders, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, because they're in the classes.
Okay.
Debbie, Jim said we don't have to appoint a representative tonight, but do you have anybody that you want to suggest at this time?
Put anyone on the spot, but I was actually thinking it would be Officer Azevedo. He's our school resource officer. Maybe That's a thought. It's one thought. Other
Yeah.
people can have other thoughts.
With all due respect, I think
Talk
we
about
have
it.
them for the police already.
Oh, you already have them for the
Or
police?
somebody's covering the
Well,
police.
I
so
said it first. No.
I'm going for the twofer.
Okay, well then, why don't we think about that? Why don't we think about that? But I know that at your spots, Jana had put, this just recently came from Mass Association of School
In
Committees.
today's mail,
Which
yeah.
is in today's mail, the
Right,
opiate,
and-
the opiate crisis in Massachusetts,
I
are
sent
students
it
at risk?
Email.
And,
Oh, that was on the
um,
email, yep.
This is actually for school committee members to go on a Saturday
Mm-hmm.
in the southeast region for school committee members to learn more about it. So that's another thing that we can do. And then I think if we, what-
Please share your name first this time, if you
Come
will.
up to the-
It's Chris Long. As most know, I'm a mom of addicts, both in recovery right now. It's a good day. A couple of things, talked about, getting the parents in and stuff like that. So you have a mandatory sports night where you have, parents are mandatory to come in and speak or hear whatever your coaches have to say. You have one in the spring and you have one in the winter or fall, whatever. It's a great opportunity then to educate your parents on how to advocate for your kids if they have a sports injury. To think about, little Johnny twisted his knee. He doesn't need Percocets because it's swollen. He needs ice and ibuprofen. You need to educate there. Start the conversation there. As far as a guest speaker, I have access to a lot of people that are just as good as Chris Herron. I'm not knocking down Chris Herron, but he's very expensive. And he's good, guest speakers are huge. I mean, the impact that they have, we go around and we speak in rehabs and detoxes and commitments. That's what they need to hear. They need to share their stories. That's part of their recovery. That's what they do in recovery. That's how they give back. So it is. It's very important, and they're very open and honest. So
Yeah.
just those two things to start the education program.
Thank you, Chris. Anything else before we move on?
Well, I don't know if we're going to, go forward and have a school committee representative, but I would like to participate.
That's what I was- yeah.
If we need to nominate an actual representative, I
I'm
would be.
unclear as to.
Why don't we let the
I'm unclear,
superintendent
and
spend a
I would
little
like
time?
more clarity, so, and then we can think about it.
Yeah, sure.
What, the purpose would be to have somebody from the schools as the liaison to find out what's going on in the community and bring information back to us, or
And vice versa, both.
So
It-
were
it's-
you thinking it would be more a staff member, or a school committee member, or?
I think it's your best and brightest and most ambitious. It doesn't have to be an employee,
sure
it doesn't
that's
have
me.
to volunteer.
Sorry.
Tina did a great job with the flagpole for us, but,
But
no,
I wasn't
it-
sure, that's why I wanted to ask more questions afterwards,
Yeah.
and maybe, so is it somebody that
All right,
that
I'll
has a
give you
connection
an
to kids?
Yeah, I'll give you an example. When I got hit with it, someone came to me as a selectman and said, I need help. And I got involved, not knowing anything. I went to social services and I said, we need a place for this person. Dead end, because that's not what they do. They said, try the police. Police said, try the courts. The court says, we're all booked up. I did a circle for 2 months. It would have been nice to have a place in town where you can go that says, I've got this issue. Maybe they gave me a pamphlet or something, but it's shared information that's available to the public from a bunch of different sources.
Okay.
So maybe you meet monthly, it's a speaker, it's basically awareness. And if that awareness comes from someone from each department, it's just stronger.
Okay, so maybe we should think, because we do actually have a district wellness committee, which Linda co-chairs right now. So I don't know, I think we need to think about what's the best avenue to come back and actually have action, and maybe it's somebody from our already existing wellness committee, because they would be more aware of everything we're doing around the area of health and wellness, because there are nurses on it, there are food service people, there are wellness teachers, there are
Oh, yeah.
parents.
Yep.
So maybe, I don't know, these are all the things that are going through my mind. Maybe somebody from that committee is a good avenue? I don't know.
Yeah,
But-
and by all
it's a
means,
lot
I was
of-
not asking for a name because we're just setting it up as well. And we don't know what the parameters are, or, what the goals are fully yet either.
So we'll give the superintendent a little time to think
Yeah.
about it.
I take certainly any suggestions, but those are just a few thoughts. I wasn't sure if it was, of what would be best.
So I want to thank Diana and Officer Acevedo and the chief and Mr. Heinricher and Chris Long and Linda and Sharon, all for coming. I know that shows the support, the commitment that the community feels that the schools need to take as part of this community discussion, so thank you. And I most especially want to thank Chairman of the Selectmen, Jim DeVellis, who's been a good partner of ours for a long time, for once again taking the lead on an important issue. And Jim, it's our pleasure to work with you on this, and we'll be back to you with the representative.
Thank you, I appreciate that, and thank you for your openness, and it's an uncomfortable topic, but I felt comfortable talking to you guys about it, I appreciate it.
It is, but that's great.
And thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Great.
Another
Thank you.
example
Thank you, Jim.
of doing good for our community. I'll say that.
Okay. While some of the audience may depart, we're going to transition to our mid-year technology progress report with Mr. Heyer and team.
Yes. We put Bill's name, my name, Amy's name, and Aaron's name on this agenda item because we are all, technology is a hot topic for all of us. But really, it's about Aaron and Amy. Put together the update for you. And what we decided to do was just have them go through, as you know, our tech plan is huge. It's a 5-year plan. And pick out the areas where there's been progress since the last time we updated you in June, and just focus on the things that have happened that are new and different or updated, not feel the need to revisit the entire plan. And just go with what's changed and what's new since the last update in June.
Thank you, Debbie. And I was just going to offer, Aaron, we had the opportunity to have your report in our packet, so thank you for preparing that. And I was going to offer, I don't think you have to read every bullet, but if you want to highlight certain ones that you feel strongly about, and it doesn't have to be all the good news, it can be the here's where we still have to progress, or here's where we need help, or any of that.
Great.
Is that okay?
So we have the 5 goals in the technology plan, and when you look at the first 3 of those goals, they really are looking at teaching and learning and looking at our curriculum. I'll just pull it up just to give an overview of those goals. So the first one is engaging and empowering learners, and that's with the instruction that's taking place in the classroom. And so highlighting some of the things that have taken place this school year. We've really been focusing on the learning supports through Office 365, the collaboration and productivity tools that are there, looking at how can we meet just-in-time, on-demand professional development, and professional development that's differentiated for our teachers by proficiency level, if you will, because just as students are at different places, so are teachers. They're at different places too. So one of our goals that you heard about at the end of last school year was really assessing the level of need and the supports that are necessary for our teachers. So on our 3 professional development days this school year, we've done just that. It was a matter of selecting different professional development technology workshops based on level of need, and then at the same time having another mechanism in place to support them. And one of those that's new this year, bless you,
Thank you.
is that you see there on one of the bullets is Brain Honey. It's the second bullet there. It's an online learning platform to deliver just-in-time professional development. So what we thought we would do is give you an example and just show you what this is. And this is something that we've struggled with for the last 3 years, in that if we have someone come in, whether it's one of our teachers or an outside consultant, to do professional development, maybe they're modeling a lesson and we want to videotape that lesson and have that for later on discussions, for follow-up, or maybe it's a new teacher that's on board and they missed that. And it was a great PD opportunity that's in line with our curriculum. Being able to record that, it's not so much that speakers wouldn't allow us to do that, but to be able to have it where we have the security in place to where it cannot be shared, because you can imagine they're not wanting that shared. We also want the confidentiality of our own staff and for it not to be shared. So this online learning platform is under our faculty tab on our website. Brain Honey is our vendor. So if I were a teacher here, I would log in. And we are designing our own modules here. Right now, we have more nuts and bolts types of things that are here. So as an example, with Office 365 and all of the tools that are there, we're wanting teachers to use these collaborative tools with their students to make it engaging and inspiring. So how do I go about really applying this and what does it look like. I've had a professional development workshop on this, but I still need to kind of practice on my own. So they can log in from home, they can go to these courses, and if I were to go to the one on creating a notebook, I'm not going to play the whole thing, but just to give you an idea.
Welcome to the first instructional video in the OneNote 101 series. I'm Julia Greenstein. This video is on creating your first OneNote notebook. If you have previously created a OneNote notebook, please feel free to skip this video and move on to the next section in the course. If you have not previously...
So you may have recognized that voice, Julia Greenstein. So our 3 technology integration specialists are putting together these courses for our teachers that are Foxboroughised, if you will, based on what we need in order to be in line with our curriculum. It's not something that's commercialized because we want it to be very specific. I can go back to this at any time. If I forget how to do this, I can watch it as many times as I want. The other things that are built into it are tasks to where I can practice and get immediate feedback on creating these notebooks and how does that look like for me in my class. So right now it's nuts and bolts. Tomorrow we have Dr. Nancy Boyles coming in and doing some modeled lessons on closed reading. We're going to be videotaping those portions of those lessons and then taking the instructional piece from our curriculum and then putting those as courses here so we can revisit those. And they're ones that we're going to be able to have this library professional development. So that really is hitting a number of the action steps within our technology plan. One other example to show you is, so that's a OneNote notebook. What does that look like in the classroom for a teacher? To give you an example, so if you open it up, what you see here is an online notebook that a group of us are sharing with each other right now. And you've heard about the flipped classroom. And what does that look like? So if in this case, I'm going to show you an example of a high school English teacher. She has taken Office Mix, which is pretty much PowerPoint on steroids, if you will. It's a new add-on that's within Office 365. It allows teachers to take a PowerPoint that they had before, provide voice to it to be able to give instructions to students. They can embed questions in it to where they can get assessment. Students can get immediate feedback through this. At the same time, the teacher can look to see how long did they spend on this? Did they zip right through it? Did they go through and watch and listen? So there's so many different ways to use some of these tools. But just to play a minute here of one, this is this is actually Shannon Wasilewski at the high school. This is one of the videos that she's taken for her students on a rhetorical analysis. So this could be done ahead of time. Students watch this before coming into class and then have in the classroom more instruction on this and then really working with this. Or it can be something I can go back to if I need a refresher and it's my own teacher listening to my teacher in the way it was presented in the classroom.
Quick how-to guide to rhetorical analysis. So what is a rhetorical analysis? Simply put, a rhetorical analysis is a written explanation about how a writer or a speaker attempts to change the mind of his or her audience. An effective rhetorical analysis demonstrates a full understanding of the interplay of the rhetorical triangle. Gotcha. So what do we need to figure out before we write a rhetorical analysis? We need to identify the purpose. What does the writer want to do? We need to identify the audience. Who is the targeted audience? And we have to look for the strategies. Considering the audience and knowing the purpose, what would be the most effective strategies? On the AP exam, students are presented with a text from a well-known and/or published author. The writer has a purpose and a targeted audience. The writer has also chosen strategies that he or she believes will be the most effective. The student's job is to write an essay that discusses the purpose, the audience, and the strategies employed by the writer, and the intended effect of those strategies. So what do? I'm so glad you asked.
So as you can see,
First thing to do,
if I'm at home and I need a refresher, I want to go back to this, I have my teacher that I'm able to listen to again, go back and have that as an additional support. And I could embed questions in here, whether they're multiple choice, students could answer, have direct feedback. There's so many opportunities. So I wanted to just show those as two examples here. When you look at the first goal there, when we're talking about what are some of the learning supports we're putting in play. Providing the professional development in all of these applications has been a huge piece. It's a journey that we're all on. We're supporting people at different levels. One of the other ways that we're wanting to make sure that we're supporting people is we've put together with the Technology Steering Committee a survey that's both for staff and that's for students. So we can look at how perceptions from the student perspective and the staff perspective go together. That's being launched tomorrow. We're working with K-12 Insight to do that. That's asking questions all the way from our BYOD initiative this year, why students are bringing in certain devices, why they're not, what's keeping them from bringing those in, how are they using them, how often are they using technology in their classrooms, from the student perspective, from the staff perspective, so we can look at that data and again, better support from our technology instructionists, the teachers in our buildings to help continue to move these initiatives forward. So those are, I think, three big things that speak to that first goal. And it also falls in line with our second goal when we look at assessing what matters. That survey that we're launching tomorrow from the teacher's perspective as well as the student perspective. That's going to give us a lot of rich data. Many things are hard to measure. We're measuring dark days, which are looking at our labs, our standing labs like the one behind us, our mobile labs with all of our laptop carts. How often are they being used? Where are they being used? Are the mobile labs being used more than the standalone labs? Those are things where we can measure more specifically, and we're starting that kind of baseline data this year. But when we look at measuring other pieces, we need the perception data as well. So that's going to happen. The other piece here is TestWiz is a data analysis tool that we have used in the past. We're expanding the use of that and looking at assessing students. We know we're going to more online testing. So we want more opportunities where it becomes just very natural. So as an example, on midterms here at the high school, the social studies department was able to use TestWiz with the help of Julia Greenstein to take the questions, embed pictures and graphs and those things, and then create the test that way so it's an environment of what they're going to be expected to do. So the technology doesn't end up getting in the way. It's our curriculum that matters most. And the other piece there is Pearson Inform, which you've heard a lot about in the past, the data warehouse. With PARC and it moving to different levels, bless you, there's been a lot of work there of moving that PARC data into Pearson Inform, so that has been something too, because we want to make sure that even as it changes in the future, that we still have comparable data and looking at that, we don't miss a beat.
It's really exciting to be here to present this information because so much has happened in such a short time. That's for sure. As Dr. Bertos has already highlighted and so well been able to give you examples, our virtual learning program and our exploration into hybrid course content has by far been one of the most interesting things that's happened this year, and that's happened with the implementation of Grade 4 Social Studies Alive program, which allows students to work in centers and have content reinforced through interactive materials that are provided online to them. Also, the differentiation of our professional development this year was broken down. So it was delivered by level of skill and by teacher grade level to better meet our current curricular needs. The expanded online assessment of TestWiz, the use of Office 365 tools such as Office Mix to allow for online assessment in real-time, on-the-spot data analysis. This really is preparing students to take online exams and assessments, and again, to make it so that technology isn't standing in the way of students from accessing curriculum or performing on assessments as well.
Lastly, one of the things that we've spent quite a bit of time on is talking about how do we assess our progress with technology, and whether that's instructionally or whether that's with students in terms of learning, so both with teaching and learning. And that's been the development, working with development of an assessment tool, an inventory or a survey, where we can compare data, perception data from both staff and students in terms of the use of technology, how it benefits students accessing to curriculum, and in terms of engagement, and as well as allowing students to access tools at their own pace, whether it's through tools like Brain Honey or Office Mix.
One of the things that, too, in those discussions is, our strategic plan is a 3-year plan. This technology plan is a 5-year plan. So we're 3 years into this, and technology changes very quickly. And some of the things that we had in the plan before, 5 years down the road, we're seeing that morph a little bit. So when we're looking at, how we're, the teaching tools here and how it changes, some of the things that we're now using didn't exist when we started this plan before. So it really has been a very interesting dialogue as far as where we're going and the pieces that are falling into place now. And then that part's been exciting too. We have, through it ends up being a grant. It's something that I learned about at the International Society for Technology and Education conference last summer through the Verizon Mobile Learning Academy. And the picture that was up on the screen before, there's 11 of us that represent, from administrators to teachers, the technology integration specialists, and we're in this 10-week course to where we're getting credit through Johns Hopkins University, and it's taking our mobile initiative forward. And it really has been, what we're seeing as the catalyst of providing a framework for us. And what are we already doing? We're with people from all across the country. And honestly, we're finding that we're pretty far ahead than so many other schools. We've had one of the districts, one other one that happens to be in Massachusetts, contact us and ask us about the Brain Honey. How are you doing that? Can you go through and share with us? We're not sharing our content, because that's all developed in-house for here, but the process of that. So that part's been really encouraging to see that we have really high expectations, but we're making a lot of progress very quickly when we're looking at the engagement factor. Do we have a lot of work to do? Absolutely. But I feel like we're getting really good traction.
Do you want to take questions, or do you want to wait till the end?
I just wanted to chime in on one thing that Amy mentioned about the strategic plan, if that's okay. I don't want to interrupt your flow, but you said strategic plan, and it was something that I was thinking the entire time I was reading your report, your summary, was how nicely what you were doing, really, you're helping us meet our goals of our strategic plan, not just the technology plan, because over and over again throughout our strategic planning process, we talked about increasing opportunities for communication and collaboration, and it's all right there. I mean, it's just amazing what you're doing, so that's really all I wanted to say. I was about to burst over here. So.
And we kind of feel like these first 3 goals,
Wouldn't want her to burst.
Help her out. You gotta help her out.
they dovetail together, and looking at the curriculum and instruction piece. And then I would like to, as another piece, just in case I forget, is that on April 5th, when we have the Parent Technology Night, so many other concrete examples of what this looks like at different levels will be highlighted and showcased that evening too. So questions on the first 3 goals?
Questions, anyone? I have general comments and thoughts, but I'll wait till you're finished.
The last 2 are really getting more into the infrastructure and hardware, so.
I apologize, I'm fighting a cold, so I'm trying not to cough and sneeze the whole time I'm up here.
Just don't share.
So covered in Goal 3 is the gap analysis, and this was really instrumental in making sure that both students and teachers have access to the technologies they need to facilitate high-quality teaching and learning. And through our gap analysis that we conducted this past year, we've done things, and we've been able to move initiatives that really should take priority for us to accomplish our goals around technology. So I'm pleased to report that now all school buildings have 100% wireless coverage. And now we're into the second phase of our wireless build-out, which is building capacity. So the first phase is to build coverage, is to get every square inch of the building covered. And then the second phase is to make sure that our capacity is in line with the number of wireless devices and things that are in any given area of the building. And we actually have a pretty good capacity right now, and we're able to meet most of our demands, but this is something we know that moving forward we'll continue to work on. Mobile media labs have been deployed to all schools. So assessing where technology is being used and where it's not being used, and how we can improve the use of technology in those areas. So we were able to deploy multimedia labs. These are essentially labs on wheels that provide audio-visual support, whether it's a projector, sound, PA amplifier, and they integrate with a computer to provide and deliver multimedia content. So these were installed and made available at all schools, and then there were also systems made available to our health and wellness programs to be used in the gymnasiums and in the health and wellness classrooms as well. Also, these programs complement new curriculum that's being developed for health and wellness. Talk about the flipped classroom, where students can from home review lessons, take assessments, and then as well maybe access information, for instance, about nutrition, and then come into the school and continue those lessons. 200 additional mobile devices were deployed throughout the district. So the district has been fortunate to be in a replacement cycle. We've been able to keep our technology fairly current. What we're able to do through the gap analysis is understand better how to meet the needs of our current instructional program. And with that, a decision was made this year to continue our development and implementation of phased one-to-one computing to provide every student throughout the school year with opportunities to have authentic one-to-one computing experiences. 100% of our academic classrooms are now equipped with interactive technology. We're finishing up the last couple of classrooms here at the IGO this coming week. These are the interactive boards and projectors similar to the one that we use tonight, which are used both with students, by students and teachers, developing standards around the installation of this equipment to make that more accessible. So for instance, in an elementary classroom, grades K through 3, the board is installed 24 to 30 inches from the floor, so that they're accessible for students to use, not just a teaching tool, but a learning tool also for students. The software self-service portal, so in terms of accessibility.
Can I just say something about that? That was such a, it seems so simple.
I know.
But that was such a huge piece. When Aaron came in and looked at the instructional environment and looked at where the board was placed, teachers have mentioned before, when I have children that are this tall, and for them to be the interactive piece and they can't reach it, it's the first thing you notice. Why is it up there when you have first graders that are this tall? And so taking those boards and doing what needs to do to bring it down to have the access there, it makes all the difference in the world. And it's because of all of the technology pieces, but the instructional design of a classroom too that he has. It's just huge.
I also think it made a big difference when we moved to the interactive whiteboards, which again Aaron brought into the district where we didn't have that before. So really there wasn't a lot of interaction that the younger children were going to do. Now they virtually have the ability to go up to the board and touch the board just like you would on a touchscreen computer, and it interacts back. And I think that's, again, now it's obvious the board has to be down and usable for them to be able to deal with that. So,
Developing a plan to deploy appropriate technology. So Bill's talking about the interactive boards. We're also piloting interactive table technology in the pre-K level as well, so that it is accessible by students. So it's not just about the hardware, and I think that one of the things we've learned is about the cloud, right? It's the new buzz in technology, software as a service, or software in the cloud. Continuing our Office 365 deployment and our focus on that, and through our new licensing agreement with Microsoft, being able to provide students and their families with home use and personal use licenses for Office 365 at home really creates a level playing field for students that are preparing schoolwork at home. the software self-service portal, something else implemented this year, allows us to take an inventory of the software that we're using, and software can be very expensive. So for instance, the district may own 30 licenses of specialized software for computer automated design or graphic arts design. We can take inventory of the software where it's being used, and we can deploy it in a manner that's agile, and we can also reclaim it. So it allows students, if they need to use graphic arts design software here in the media center, they can go to the software self-service portal and it can be installed. And then after the portal notices that the software is no longer in use, it can take it back so that someone else can use it somewhere else, in the district. So we're typically, only that software is accessible in specialized labs or in certain places. It makes it more accessible for people. Okay. A lot of this, again, there's a lot of synergy between these, so I'll try not to continually cover the same things again. But in terms of infrastructure, really conducting that gap analysis and continually looking at what meets our needs and not just moving forward with what's been in the past has allowed us to have a big impact.
But this list of progress to date is incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, congratulations.
Thank you. It really is the hard work of many in the district to, there's a lot of passion. I'm fortunate to be sitting next to our assistant superintendent who's very passionate about technology as well. So it really is the work of many.
Aaron, do you want to just cover Goal 5 for a couple minutes?
Absolutely. So there's also some great things I'd like to highlight here. So our productivity and redesign and to transform. So one of the things in terms of technology that we're always conscious of is doing it in a way that's fiscally responsible, not succumbing to fad technology, and doing it in a way that's backed by research and is shown to be efficient. And to do this, we're continually reviewing our technology policies and our hardware inventory in terms of, as evidenced by the gap analysis that we just spoke about. But two of the things that I'm particularly proud about are our implementation of our automated help desk this year, which has allowed us to augment our desk side support with remote assistance. So along with being able to have desk side support, being able to remotely assist teachers and doing so in a way that can be more efficient in terms of time and can get them the support they need in a more timely manner. Through the use of our automated help desk, we've seen decreased response rates, and we've also seen a higher satisfaction level from teachers and those that are requesting support.
Can you just give us an example, Aaron, of how that's used?
So for instance, if a teacher puts in an automated ticket for a software update or a patch or is having a problem with the computer, and we can identify at our service desk that it's something we can fix remotely. Often we can just remote in. It's often within 15 minutes of the request being received and assist that user and resolve that issue. Saving time in terms of travel, getting teachers with things that they need that are quicker. The other thing too is also with our software self-service desk, there's a number of things that can be deployed in the background in terms of updates and things that often take us away from being able to provide direct desktop support or remote assistance. So, for instance, deploying a security update. In the past, some of the security updates that were deployed required a technician to go desktop to desktop to desktop to deploy them. We're able to automate those tasks. Leveraging things like power management, powering down computers in the evening has allowed us to spend more time at the desk side or providing direct support.
Did you say there was one other thing you wanted to highlight that you're really proud of in 5? Or did we hit them both?
So the other thing too is we've had an informal reorganization in the technology department in terms of roles and responsibilities. Unfortunately, we've had some people move on to either new positions or choose to relocate their families to warmer weather. It's unfortunate for us, not necessarily for them. But we use that as an opportunity to evaluate what we're doing in terms of personnel and roles and responsibilities in the office, and really making the most of what we have and the way we utilize our resources. So,
It's great. It's a great report.
thank you. Again, I apologize for my cold.
No, you did great. Questions or comments or thoughts from the committee?
Very impressed. This is incredible.
Tina?
So again, I have to reiterate the thanks for all the hard work from the team, you know, from all the people who put this together, and I think it's.
I love the picture.
Yeah, the picture
The
says
team.
it all. We have
That's
the
the
team right here.
Verizon Mobile Learning Academy.
That's just wonderful. I also think it would be a good opportunity to thank the community, because we've received really great support for technology in our budget for as we, move on in the process. But we've, every year in CIP, we keep adding technology. We added, another technology integration specialist, and I think we're seeing the fruits of that here and how it is working to advance our strategic plan, our technology plan, and our school system as a whole. So, thank you, Foxborough.
As Amy addressed earlier, that technology it changes so quickly that we really do need to stay on top of technology, and we really are fortunate in terms of the support we receive from both this committee and the town to be able to do that, because you can fall behind so very, very quickly, as we've seen.
It seems like you're doing such a great job of harnessing what we have and using it to its fullest potential, and teaching our people how to use it to best serve our students, so thank you.
We'd be remiss if we didn't mention the incredible support we get from our instructional technologists in the classroom, and really how impactful that is to improving teaching and learning.
And our faculty who really aren't afraid to try new things.
True.
They get it from, that's a huge help in trying to see what works and what works for us, and move it forward.
In this group here, I was taking the picture, so I'm not in the picture. But the part that's been the most exciting for me with this group is, yes, we have our initiatives and we want to move forward. But to see from colleague to colleague the awe of each other and the appreciation, to see a high school teacher versus an elementary teacher, and for them to be so impressed with each other and what they're doing with kids, that just motivates them even more to go and to share more. So that's exciting. You'll hear more about it in the future. We're right in the middle of this course right now.
Yeah, just one more thought. I have an 8th grader and a 10th grader, and I know Steve does too, and I'm sure you can see the same, what my 8th grader is doing with the same teachers, technology-wise, they're just using what they have in so many different ways, and you can tell they're excited and enthusiastic, and they are really putting this right into their classroom instruction, and they were equally wonderful when my 10th grader had them, but they're using this stuff in new and different ways, and it's really exciting to see.
Other comments? Then I'll just sum up as I often do. I'm very impressed with a lot of this. When I first read the report, I said, okay, another technology report where I'm going to be the bad cop and say I want more details, right? But there is an awful lot of detail in here, and there's an awful lot of work in here. And Amy, I think it was you who said, this isn't a hard area to measure, right? This is and I face that in my job every day. Convincing school districts to implement technology, you can't see an immediate ROI. Maybe you see improved student outcomes at some point, and how much of that you can attribute to technology is tough to measure. But I think you're starting to give us the level of detail that I was hoping for, and I know how hard you're working, and I want to echo Tina's thanks. And I always feel the need to prove to the parents and the community, what is behind all these bullet points that you've raised, because it's an investment we're consciously making in this school system. But I see a lot of things, just for example, the way you presented first the district or the teacher-faculty adoption topics before you then presented the infrastructure topics, I think makes a lot of sense. I think we're at that point where we can make that shift away from just getting more units to now how are we really using them in the classroom. And the more that you can continue to provide us detail or examples or comments behind that, I think would be really beneficial and helpful for the committee and the community to see what the return on this investment really is. So I just want to applaud you. Just as one example, thought comes to mind, Amy, you mentioned the professional development a couple times and how we put that into 3 different groupings. Just off the top of your head, rough numbers, how did our staff split up across the 3 different levels at this stage?
Many of them, like for instance, if you take the OneNote 101 versus the OneNote 201, a lot of teachers thought, well, I'm a 101. And really they were a 201. They weren't giving themselves enough credit. But then you had some that were 101 and honestly, we needed some extra support for them. But I think that that's where the technology integration specialists, they are so patient at taking someone at where they are and supporting them so they're willing to take that risk and to learn to move forward, which is huge because it is a learning curve for so many. As far as this last PD day, when we offered a number of different things and it was based on their curricular needs, we didn't see as many people looking for the smart interactive software because that's something that I think that they're doing more on their own and not needing to collaborate. It's more the office mix, these collaborative tools and how they're using it with their students and from colleague to colleague. And there's some really exciting things going on, even particularly at the middle school too. So I would say the OneNote 101, not the Smart, they had such OneNote Ninja. I mean, the titles of these were unbelievable. But I think more of the collaboration tools. We saw the majority of people looking towards those.
So put you on the spot. Of our faculty, and I wouldn't expect high numbers yet, this is a process, I think we all understand that. What % are in the bottom tier, what % are in the middle, and what % are in the high? In terms of comfort level with technology, in terms of how they chose PD.
I think that's hard to measure because there's so many different pieces.
Well, you must have had
within.
did you have certain numbers go into each session?
We had more people in OneNote 101
Yeah.
than we did in 201.
Feeling as though they weren't there yet.
2/3
And then-
more at 101 versus 201.
Okay.
And part of that, honestly, is the students have email addresses at middle school and high school. So what they're able to do versus the elementary level, it's very different. So
Yeah.
it's hard to measure it because of the access from the student level. They're having to think about it very differently.
I also think that in terms of where people are, it's a continuum. It's not that they're neatly in one category or another. It's definitely a continuum of where you are. And you might be proficient at some areas of that particular tool and not at others because you haven't used it as much. So I think it's hard to put people in any category. Everybody's sort of on that journey, and it can be a little gray along the road.
So I think
I just want to say it wasn't too many years ago that we were here saying we're behind. We're behind, we're really behind.
Not anymore.
So here we are saying we're actually a little bit ahead when it comes to utilization and getting the power and the leverage out of the tools that we have in technology. Not that there aren't more places to go, because there certainly are. So what I like about what these people are doing in the technology steering committee and how they're leading our district is this. They don't just keep doing things. They stop every once in a while, as they are now, and they collect more information and more data through surveys, through meeting with people. So we don't just keep going without thought. It's like, okay, where are we now and what do we need? So it's really very thoughtful, and it's really hard work. So I just am thrilled that we're sitting here saying we're not only where we wanted to be, but we're a little bit ahead in this idea of utilization and depth of
Yeah,
use.
to that point, when you mentioned that other Massachusetts districts are calling us to say, how are we doing things? That's a neat thing to experience, I'm sure. And we're fortunate, we're in a size district where we can probably implement some things across much of the school system that other districts might struggle with. And certainly with the community support and Bill's support, we've been able to do a lot of things. So thank you. That was a great update. And I'm glad we do this mid-year report. I think it's helpful.
It is important because a lot did happen.
Yeah, good.
So,
Keep up the good work,
Thank you.
Aaron.
Just ironically, as an example, software changes are required to your computer, allowing you to have some self-service options there as well.
It's only gonna take about 15 minutes.
So I shouldn't shut down, is that what you're telling me?
It'll only take them 15 minutes. They
Please,
can be really quick response.
please
That's
pass
so
our
funny.
thanks on to your team, Aaron.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you,
great.
guys.
Should we rearrange the agenda?
so.
Okay. Assuming that Mr. McCabe and his team are ready, we will put them right on so they can get home and do all their homework.
Terrific. So if you
Great.
wouldn't mind,
Thank you, Erin.
fabulously successful DECA students and Mr. McCabe, the advisor, if you would just take the chairs in the front row and pull a chair right up to that guest table right there. Don't be shy. Is the game over and who won the game? We won.
Yay. In overtime.
Overtime.
That's fun.
82 to 70 something.
Overtime.
So the boys,
By 8. That's exciting.
yeah, so that's the boys basketball team is having a wonderfully successful season. So we can mention that now since I've been dying to know what's going on down there. So thank you, 6 of the very large DECA competition team for being here. It wasn't that long ago that we were here approving this as a new club or activity. And Mr. McCabe was here with students explaining why you wanted to do this. And I'm just gonna turn over to Mr. McCabe, but I guess I'll introduce it by saying, when you hit it out of the park in the first time out, there's a lot to celebrate.
John, can you just pull that
Mr.
one
McKay.
mic toward you a little bit, please? Thank you. Thank you, Courtney.
I just want to first off by saying that I'm so proud of these guys. I think the biggest thing that separated us was the enthusiasm. We had sort of a lack of experience, but we had so much enthusiasm. I think that was what did it for us. I'm just completely in awe of them because they did an unbelievable job. I was not expecting that at all the first year out. So kudos to them. They did a
John, just for anyone listening at home who didn't know the history from a few months ago, why don't you just take a minute or two to just talk about what it is we're talking about here?
All right, so let's see, without getting to every little minutia. Basically, we started this group last March, essentially, put out the interest, he was there. We had almost like 70 kids show up, and then from there it sort of, whittled down to those who are seriously committed. We wound up with 26 kids going to districts, which is the first level of competition. And then at that we had nine students placed in either first, second, or third.
So just in case somebody's listening at home,
Yeah,
and they didn't hear last year's meeting on DECA.
So DECA is just basically a business-oriented competition where students participate in a variety of different categories, and basically either they write a paper, like a presentation type paper, or they compete on what they call like a case study or a role play situation. So they don't know what those are until they actually get there that day. They also take a 100-question test in that particular area, and then their scores are averaged based on their test scores and their performance scores, their competition type score.
And all of these competition, different facets of it are in the areas of marketing, finance, hospitality, and tourism. I see I can read, it's not that I remembered it. And management,
Yes.
like business management. So this is great for any kid considering either one of those fields or just want that competition experience, or
Yes,
could be a
it's-
variety of reasons.
And there's actually an example of a rubric going around. There's two sides to that. One's a written competition, and one's like a role play competition. That just shows you what they're basically being assessed on. And as you can see right there, they're talking about like 21st century skills.
Wow.
So it's very much what's going on, in the world today, what these kids need to demonstrate. It's applicable to any field really, if you think about it.
Right, thank you, that's helpful background.
So, tell us about your experience, and then we're going to announce like exactly who took what. But we had 9 students who earned a spot to the state competition. So we'll end with that. So why don't we start by introducing yourself and tell us a little bit about why did you join this club and what did you think of the competition? Or anything else you'd like to say.
Hi, I'm Courtney Seeley, and I joined the club because Mackenzie Anderson told me about it originally and said that her friends were having a really good time at other schools in the club, and it had to do with business and competition, and it just sounded like it really interested me. And so Mackenzie and I decided we were going to be a team, and we picked travel and tourism to work under, and we were doing a case study. So at the last competition, we were given a problem, which was actually about like a shopping center, and 70% of their clientele was international, but the international economy was failing, and 1% was local of clientele. So we had to figure out how to really incorporate the local clientele and draw them in. So we created a marketing mix and presented it to our judge, and we ended up doing really well and explaining it through all the uses of marketing, really, and it helped. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really fun experience, and we had a really good time at the competition overall.
And you earned what place?
We
Courtney?
got second place in our competition.
Pretty good.
Isn't it?
Pretty good.
Congratulations to you and Mackenzie.
Thanks.
Next.
I'm Matt Weiss. I joined the club because I like the idea of competition along with the idea of business, just being a part of a team. I participated in a marketing management at the original competition, but I will be participating in a trivia business at States, which will cover a broad amount of categories.
Wow.
Wow. Are you going to major in business? Are you thinking of majoring in
Yes.
business?
Got it all from your mother, do you, Matt?
It's pretty good.
Don't answer that.
Just as good looks.
Hi, I'm Chris Cuniff, and my category was in accounting and Mackenzie kind of like gave me the idea of joining the club because we've been friends, and she kind of mentioned it to me, so I thought, why not try it out? And I'd actually like to major in accounting, so I thought it'd be cool to do a competition based on accounting. And me and Matt are going to be in the trivia for the States. States.
Coming up soon.
Yep.
Impressive.
Hi, my name is Tim Luciano, and I'm interested in pursuing a business career, so I decided to join DECA. And at DECA, I participated in the marketing category, and in that category, we had to work with giving loans to schools to buy band equipment, and how to explain why we should give a loan, how it's processed, and how the school would get the money to pay back the loan. And with that, I did an interview, and I did pretty well, and then I placed third place, and now I get to go to States.
I'd say that's pretty well. That's doing pretty well.
Hi, I'm Caitlin Brightman, and me and Bailey worked together on our project. Our project was actually a little different. It was like a written project, and it was based around fashion promotion. So beforehand, before we got to the competition, we had to write an 11-page paper on like the details of our promotion and like everything about it. And then we also had to make like a poster board and I think it was like a 10-minute presentation.
10 to 15 minute
yeah.
presentation.
So we had to present our whole promotion to the judges, and then we got scored based on our presentation and the grade of our paper and the tests we took. And we ended up getting first.
First.
So that's Caitlin and Bailey Sullivan. Caitlin Bright.
Anything you want to add, Bailey? Go ahead.
I'm Bailey Sullivan, and I heard of DECA when it started last year in March, and I heard an announcement about it. And I had heard about it before through other schools because I know people that went to KP, and it's a really big club there. And I know I want to go into the business field when I'm older, so I thought it'd be a good idea to join this club.
Great.
Great. I think we should point out that Caitlin and Bailey are sophomores, so I expect to see all good things your junior and senior year in DECA as well.
So just to
No
make sure we
pressure, no.
mentioned
No,
everyone,
no
so
pressure.
Ravmir Fidei
Yeah.
took first place in retail merchandising. Tasneem Bootwala, first place in principles of business management administration. Zara Bootwala, two siblings, second place in principles of finance. And Andre Jabari, third place in business finance series. So I was reading the messages that night that you were, when all of this was going on, and I will say, good for you, students. He practically keeled over. He was almost unable to text or send other messages about what was going on, and there was a lot happening on Twitter as well. But it was really exciting to see something that students started, that you were passionate about, that you wanted to do, and that you went there and just got the job done. So it's amazing.
And
Congratulations.
I'm only sorry Mackenzie's not here because I know she was such a leader. Some of you got your arms twisted, it sounded like, but sounds like it was worthwhile.
And it's a huge club. It's 25 kids
Yeah.
that are active in this, so it's amazing.
I'm just curious, have you all taken the business electives here at the high school, and I'm assuming you found them all very beneficial to your experience at the competition?
They definitely help prepare for especially the marketing. It helped me a lot.
Marketing was huge.
It's good to know.
So you guys recommend we keep DECA for next year?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Great.
What about,
And you have one more official duty, actually.
I-
I don't have Diana's recommendation, but I know we talked about it, so we just forgot to put it. But the state competition is March 10 to 12 in Boston, and it is an overnight.
I was going to ask that question.
It is.
When I saw the agenda when we were looking for the
So-
packet.
They would love for you to entertain approval of their overnight trip to the state DECA competition, March 10 to 12 in Boston.
Motion to approve? Thank you.
I
Second?
will second that.
Any further discussion? All those in, Steve? Nope, hang on. No vote.
Just to add that you're looking to do some fundraising. Is there anything in the works right now, or
Wednesday night.
can you give us a forecast or what you have going on?
Wednesday night, you're eating Chinese food.
Yeah.
Oh, that's helping you out? Good.
So we
He's
just
been
had
very
one-
good, very good to the schools.
To the
Just
community.
had one at the basketball game. We raffled off like we called it a luxury box seat. It was like a couch, and they got food and stuff like that. So we just finished that one tonight.
Good idea.
And then we're doing one on Wednesday. We're trying to cram as much in as we can.
Doing one of
What's
those at the
happening
girls'
on
game
Wednesday,
Wednesday?
please?
Wednesday is go ahead.
On Wednesday, we'll have the Mandarin Chef fundraiser, and if you bring a flyer to Mandarin Chef and you get food there, then part of the proceeds will go towards our DECA club.
They've done that with the track too.
Yeah,
Are you
they do
doing-
that with, like,
are
every
you
club.
doing
Did it with
anything-
the-
Are you doing anything else? Do you have any other?
Let me, let me interrupt for just a second. We have a motion on the floor. Let's just vote on that. We have motion.
I move
Yeah.
to.
We've got it
And
moved.
second.
We've got it moved in second.
And second, yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Go ahead.
And good luck.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Steve.
I've been thinking about orange chicken now. I'm like all screwed up right now.
Yeah.
So do you have any other plans for fundraisers? You need to raise money. We want to make sure the world knows about it.
Yeah, we may be canning
Uh-huh.
Yep.
downtown, asking Dunkin' Donuts if
Well.
we can there.
Okay.
It's very popular for other sports.
Myers Packla's going,
What's that? What was that?
We're cautious about, I don't know if Mrs. Myers Packla wants, we're cautious about students in canning and putting kids in certain, however, I will say on your, so let's discuss that further. But I will say, if there's any business-minded people watching from home, or that
Yes.
just want to celebrate these kids' wonderful achievement, you can just make a donation. You don't have to wait for Chinese food or fundraiser. You can just call my office and say, or the high school and say, I would love to contribute to those awesome group of students who are going to the state DECA competition, and this is how much I'd like to contribute.
Thank you.
Awesome.
How many students are we
Take it easy.
sending? All 25, or how many
We're
students are
sending
going?
11 total. Yeah.
That's
so the ones that competed and earned
And placed?
one of the first 5 spots go, and then we're also sending a group for the what's called the quiz bowl. You can send one team to the quiz bowl. So
That's awesome.
That's Matt and Chris are going to the quiz bowl.
No pressure.
I wanted to ask a question. I know you guys are sophomores, you're a junior, right?
Yeah.
Are you going into the, I don't know if you're thinking about it yet, are you all going into the fields that you're going, like you're doing marketing, Tim? Are you gonna
yes,
go into
most
marketing?
business, most likely marketing.
Okay, Chris?
Yeah, I want to go into accounting, and that was my category.
And Courtney, are you thinking
Yeah, I really want to
travel
go
and
into
tourism?
business. I like travel and tourism and hospitality. I also really enjoy marketing. So I'm kind of between the two, but a lot of the travel and tourism has to do with marketing. So it's still really benefiting me being in this club.
And Matthew, you're doing business and finance, I kind of already know that.
And why was I not surprised to see Joe as one of the winners in the couch at the basketball game?
Couch. I stuck in the couch.
Oh, you snuck in.
You invite
Oh,
yourself. Did you invite
now I'm
yourself?
really not surprised.
I deserve some nice
I didn't even notice it. I didn't even notice the coach in there.
Listen, I want to thank you guys for
Very proud of all
coming.
of you. Thank
You know, sometimes as a school committee, we approve these electives and don't really know how it's going to turn out, but I would say this one's turned out with flying colors. So thank you to
Absolutely.
you,
Impressed.
to Mr. McCabe, to Mackenzie, and the rest of the group. Really a great story. Good luck at States.
Thank you.
We're back for approval for internationals.
Oh,
yeah. Exactly.
Although we do get 2 spots automatically for the conference part of it, so there's
Where is
potentially
that?
at least 2 going
Nashville.
definitely to Nashville.
Where would that be?
Nashville, Tennessee.
Oh, nice.
It rotates different places, but Nashville this year.
That's a shame.
Oh, wow.
Fun city.
What time of
We'll be
year is
back.
So
that?
Matthew, want to go there? I didn't know that.
This April?
Tail end of April vacation. It
Yes.
starts the vacation,
20?
it goes to the next couple days after vacation ends.
Wow.
Start studying for that quiz bowl.
Okay.
That's
So we'll
exciting.
get that request up here through Mrs. Myers Packla, like maybe right off the beginning of March.
Wow.
Okay.
Good luck, you
Terrific.
guys.
Great
Make
job,
us proud.
Thank you. Good luck.
Already
Thank you,
made us so
for your
proud.
service on the committee. We'll sad to see you go.
Oh, well, I'll still be watching at home. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McKay.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
We sure do have terrific kids here, I'll tell you that much.
Okay, moving right along, update on enrichment and challenge.
Yes, so I think, hopefully this will wrap up something we've been talking about for many, many years, enrichment challenge. As you know, the school committee have had this on our strategic plan, but we've also had it on the joint school district goals for the past several years. And it was also one of my goals, so we've had a lot of updates in the past about expanding our enrichment and challenge opportunities before school, after school, summers. We've done an awful lot with that. Extra clubs, computer science programming in the summer, joining PCC, adding clubs and activities to the middle and high school. So we've had a lot of that. And then what the committee asked of us this year is to come with an update on how do students, what kinds of opportunities are there for enrichment and challenge within the core curriculum, so within the school day? How do we recognize this? So I prepared with the support of the principals and directors and teachers, that we prepared what we hope is sort of a summary of all of the different things that we do for enrichment and challenge within the core curriculum. And as I described it, there are a myriad of ways. I can't possibly say them all, but just for people watching at home, I'll try to give a few examples of this 4-page report. So at the elementary level, there are opportunities for enrichment and challenge in the 4 core subject areas: ELA, English Language Arts, Math, Science, Social Studies. Examples being that we now have a guided reading and guided writing group model, where there's whole class instruction, there's individualized instruction, but there are also flexible groups in the middle that read at their level or read to enhance a particular skill or to grow a particular concept, where that's one of the ways that differentiation is built in addition to reading more complex texts, having more complex discussion questions, in-depth analysis of text, literature circles. So all of those things go on in language arts. They also go on in mathematics. So guided reading and guided math and math workshop. There are tiered games. There's tiered logic and reasoning. So we have the general curriculum, but there's so many different ways that kids who are able to be challenged can go beyond. There's leveled problem solving, number talks, stretch students' thinking, and the number talks are actually, we should have a, that would be a good teaching and learning highlight, is what is a number talk, now that I'm saying it. So that you can see what kids do, but that's pretty amazing to watch, that kids share their thinking and stretch each other. There's a monthly math challenge. So all of those things are very similar to English Language Arts. In science, we have new engineering units that provides a great new opportunity for challenge. The engineering design process is quite open-ended and flexible, and kids can go as far with it as they can. They can extend their knowledge through further research or explore other resources that maybe not the whole class does. In social studies, we actually have different reading levels of articles on the same topic now available to us through the wonders of technology that you heard about, fits right in. And the Lexile reading level of the article is on there. So if you know about where a student is able to perform for independent reading, they can be guided to an article on that particular content area that is at their level, so everybody has what we call access to the content curriculum. Open-ended questions, Social Studies Alive, that program comes with challenge cards. So that's only a few examples of what we do at the elementary level for kids who can be challenged. At the middle school, you'll see very similar things, where grades 5 and 6 actually look quite similar. If you look at the bullets, they tend to be similar in our approach to enrichment and challenge or differentiated instruction. That in mathematics at grades 5 and 6, we do group kids for enrichment, remediation, on grade level work. We group them, let's say even if it's on grade level groups, and a certain group needs to work more on this particular skill, and this group needs to work on developing another type of concept, that they have flexible groupings at all levels, challenge, remedial, and in between. And it's all based on their assessment data that they use in an ongoing fashion to form those groups. We have a lot of new tech tools, so it dovetails with what Aaron and Amy just told you. Things called Front Row, Prodigy, Galileo are used for challenge. In 6th grade, you'll see other things like Solve Me, Yummy Math, Illustrative Math. So all of those things provide more challenge than we've had. And so I couldn't be happier with the progress technology has made, because we didn't even have enough infrastructure for a lot of these a few years ago. And now we have the capacity, because of Aaron's complete rebuilding of our infrastructure. We have the capacity to do almost anything we want, and that is something I didn't think I'd be able to say a few years ago. There are differentiated projects in mathematics. There are challenge activities built in. So you'll see that in grades 5 and 6 there's so much to do in math. In English language arts, we follow a readers, writers workshop model at those levels as well, similar to elementary school. But they also, we have more difficult literature, more difficult texts if they're reading short texts that are used to challenge. There's different pacing that goes on in readers, writers workshop. There's choice and essay questions for writing. There's differentiated assessments, different groupings, different choices of activities to demonstrate mastery. So the choice for challenge exists prior to the teaching of a unit, during the unit, or the literature circle, or the literature group, and then also at the end for demonstrate assessment. In science in grades 5 and 6, we now have the STEM Scope program starting in grade 6, but they have STEM Scopedia in grade 5 that's used for extension activities that students can try either in school or on their own home. There's different levels of reasoning model activities, which are tiered according to the level of challenge that they can handle. There are leveled readers and leveled math activities utilized within the science programs, and different extension activities that go with the program. For social studies, particularly in grade 6, there are project-based assessments that allow differentiation, and they're just in the process right now, based on the more recent social studies review, looking at additional challenge work that for the line with content that is in the program, that they're, as students transition into 5th grade at the Ahern, what it's under study right now, which pieces of that make most sense. They've tried a few things, now they're saying going forward, this is what we want to be doing. That's elementary middle. 7th and 8th grade look a little bit similar in that in math in 7th grade and 8th grade, well, let's just take 7th grade because these actually are different. So in 7th grade, we do offer a challenge class, which is grades 7, 8 together when the assessment student achievement data indicates the need. That doesn't happen every year. We've had the occasional year where we don't offer it, but if our assessment data indicates that we have students who can do that, we do it. We don't just offer it to, in every single year, though. It's definitely what we do to meet the needs of students when it's that we have groups of students that are capable of doing that. We have hot problems in the text. Those are considered a little bit more challenging. Students can test out of upcoming portions of the chapter. There are supplemental challenge problems from their text. And again, as in other grade levels, differentiated groupings based on assessment data, the same content. In English in grade 7, there are options and open responses. They have choice of materials and text in terms of literature, and there are alternate research activities for kids who are more capable and want to be challenged and can try something new. Within the STEM Scopes program for science, there are 3 reading levels embedded in the online content. So similar to what you just heard for the social studies articles in grade 6, we have the same, or is it, well, whatever, what I just said. We have the same kind of function within the STEM Scopes program. So as they're doing their hands-on experiments and they're reading about content or going to gather more information, they can go to a text that's at their reading level, so we're not, they can access that without difficulty. Cross-curricular activities are available in science, in terms of science and math, and there are projects at 3 different levels within the program. So everybody gets to demonstrate what they know and can do, but at their level of challenge. There are also leveled articles in social studies and differentiated assessments. Grade 8 becomes a little bit different because this is the first grade in math that we do offer regular and an honors math class for 8th grade. And we've talked about that at times over the years here at this table. And there is research that shows that if you start offering a more advanced math class in middle school, toward the end of middle school, that is developmentally appropriate. Actually, the research doesn't pan out in other areas, that more heterogeneous grouping is really the way to go, which most people do. But in math, we do offer regular and honors classes in grade 8. And again, both of those courses, whether you're in regular honors, comes with different groupings, more difficult work given to some students, challenge problems for those who can, and differentiated projects. And you'll see the same type of thing in English with lots of differentiation about writing, about assessment, and choice of topics for argument writing. Same thing for science, challenge opportunities are embedded. And then in social studies, there's choices in assessment, and there's extra credit work if students want to identify a topic and research it. Why don't I stop right there? Questions about elementary and middle, and I'll sum up the high school.
I just want to say how amazing it is. I have a 23 and 18-year-old, and how much is more offered now than it was then. It's amazing.
And some of these things were always present,
Right.
but not as obvious, perhaps.
Correct.
But whereas now they're a little bit more explicit.
Right.
And a little bit more called out and known to everyone.
Correct.
But not all of these, to your point,
Right.
existed before, you're
Yep.
right. Or maybe half.
Tina?
I will say I found this very helpful
Mm-hmm.
because this is all stuff that I know you were doing, but when asked, so how do they differentiate
this.
within the classroom? I'm like, okay, but this is a concrete way of explaining, and I found this very helpful as a parent and as a school committee member, but mostly as a parent, because I have been asked that question and I have really grasped, because my only evidence are my own kids. So I thought, wow, this is, but that's not exactly, this is so much more helpful. That was
Very
my first
detailed.
comment.
I even found it helpful as a superintendent.
Well, I thought this was a really, really good summary, and, having now had my kids go through elementary school, and I've got one who's in 8th grade and one who's in 10th grade, I can see this. I'm like, okay, I did see this. I know how this happened, but this was just such a great way to explain it. The other thing I wanted to just, I guess, point out, in the elementary school math, you talk about the math specialist
Yes.
implementing the math challenge.
Correct.
And, again, that's an area that we have tried very hard to get
Yes.
a math specialist at every single school. So I
Right.
think that does help with the,
That
on
is
this
something I
end of
highlighted and
things.
skipped, that so I'm glad you said it. The math specialists at each of the 3 elementary schools do work with enrichment groups for kids who are able to be challenged. They do work directly with them.
So
Yes.
I did want to mention that. And now we don't have one person who has to travel to all 3 schools. We have one person at each school, so that there are more direct opportunities for enrichment at that level
Right.
at each of the schools.
Again,
So that-
speaking to our community support
Mhm.
for the improvements we have been trying to make.
I want to just underscore Tina and Marilyn's point. Bevy will recall, and of course Debbie, we had this discussion about focus on this group of students in enrichment and challenge, many years ago, and a request that we really improve this. And I think to Marilyn's point, we have, and I think to Tina's point, this is a nice way to present it.
This is beautifully presented. It makes it very succinct.
I'll take it, not personally, but I'll make a point, I guess, a pointed observation. I think we lose some students from Foxborough during the middle school years because of their experience, because they want to differentiate more, because they didn't see that opportunity. I think sometimes, and I know personal examples where we've lost kids. I think we've got to figure out a way to publicize this. And I don't know what the right way or appropriate way is, but I think you and your team have done a nice job both expanding the number of opportunities, to Tina's point, but also, or in Marilyn's point, but also, presenting it together.
Well, isn't
Everyone
this-
needs to see this.
But I know, but isn't this worthy of a little highlight section in our new community report?
Yes.
Oh, it's already been mailed out. I mean.
No, but I
Next one,
mean,
next one.
that, I'm just
Yeah,
suggesting
to Marilyn's
that's one
point,
way
though, I think
to
some of these didn't exist, some did.
to
But I
reach
think
people.
that what we've done here, before I get on to high school, is that I would say, while many of these existed before, it was hard to your point too, and to your point, it was hard to call it out exactly. So if you had said, even a few years ago, I would say yes, and I would have the rundown in my head of these. But I had the same reaction once they were all collected together, and I was
much
putting it
easier.
together, and editing and weeding out and saying how much is too much, how much is. I thought, well, this is really good to capture all in one place and at one time, because I think that one of the differences is not only in the number of methods we use to differentiate and to challenge students, but it's now become more of a regular part of what's offered
Right.
in the core.
Right.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
It's more become just a regular way of business and a way of being and doing.
And
That's how I feel.
I think that might be a little bit of a hidden secret sauce that
Yeah.
we need to do a better job explaining just how hard you guys have worked to, as you said, Deb, not all of it's new. You've done a lot of this. But I think you have added some things. I think having a third technology integration specialist as an example
Hugely.
helps differentiation.
Right.
What were you gonna say?
Well, the other thing I thought about as I read this, particularly with the elementary and the middle school, was the opportunity for just student growth, that kids aren't being pigeonholed into one particular, as they grow as readers, they're gonna be continually challenged within the classroom as they
Within
develop.
their own abilities.
Right,
and
well, yes, but
interests.
as their abilities grow, they're going to be provided with increasing amounts of challenge as a student, that as their math skills develop, they're going to be given, more difficult and challenging work to do, and same with reading, and same with social studies, that it's a continuum, and you're going to always be, adapting to each child's specific
Exactly right.
abilities as they grow as students.
And listening to your reactions is taking me back to when I was the assistant superintendent, and Dr. Martis was here, when, if you remember, our philosophy was to not label children. You either are or you aren't, whatever. And what we said that we fully believed in, and we still do, is that every child at some point or in some subject area, or because there's been growth, personal growth, could be the student who's ready to be enriched or challenged in a particular subject area or at a particular moment in time. So this doesn't leave anybody out.
Right.
And I think that's why I'm happy that it's comprehensive and it's embedded, because then we're ready for any time a student is ready to be enriched or challenged. It might just be a unit in social studies that really gets them on fire, that they want to do a little extra work. So I think that philosophy of not saying we're going to label children or decide too early on that you either are a challenged student or you're not, or you'll never, that does not exist. That's not in our vocabulary here, that we're prepared to enrich and challenge any student who's ready anytime.
I remember in elementary, because I had the 5 school years, when Juliet was there, they would pull the kids out, and they didn't like that because it was a stigma. They didn't want the kids to think, oh, they're better than they are. It was a 3rd grade, I think it was. So then they started integrating in the classroom. So when Matthew was in 3rd grade, they would come in and sit with the kids that wanted to be challenged. So it wasn't as obvious as getting pulled out. So that's to that point of, you don't want to label the kids.
No,
Right.
because they've proven us
But
wrong.
the difference is,
many times.
The changes there are,
So-
this is so, I'm very impressed with this.
Steve?
Yeah,
Didn't mention high
Deb's gonna get into
We're more
the high
familiar with a
school
lot of
stuff as well, but there's also the women's hockey and the blended athletic program that we have with, blending different
Right.
students of different abilities on the track or
Oh, that's
whatever.
awesome.
Now, I
And
took
that's a
those
pretty
out, just.
That's a pretty
I love that.
interesting
Well, what
twist.
some of our departments put in several of those things, even DECA. I took those things out because how I interpreted this homework assignment, if you will, is
Yeah.
that I kept it to enrichment and challenge opportunities in the core
In the
during
3
the
Rs.
day.
In academics.
So, otherwise, your report would have been super, super long.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to just be succinct about how do we enrich and challenge kids in the core, and not try to put in every club activity that we've added or that we had, or
Right.
athletics there were some athletic things in there too. So I didn't want to do that. So these are just in the core during the school day, and high school is easy to sum up. We have AP, we have honors classes in addition to college prep, we have electives, all of those enrich and challenge kids. And in many of the departments, there are assessment choices, there are assignment choices, there are different problems that are presented at different levels, and you can tackle some or more or all. We have new courses that are challenging, like the computer science courses going in. There's differentiated hands-on work, like labs, projects, inquiry-based learning across the subject areas. Many of the core curriculum areas do have competitions, just heard about DECA, which is extracurricular, but everybody knows our music program comes embedded with competitions, sectionals, student leadership. Art has competitions embedded in every student who's in an art class enters competition, so that's a core curriculum challenge opportunity. And we have many types of independent projects with many teachers, and we all know that we have virtual high school, which can enrich and challenge students if they choose. Senior Project does that. And last but not least, every high school in Massachusetts is involved with dual enrollment at state colleges and universities, and it's available when it's appropriate.
Even wellness, the offerings in wellness that we've expanded.
That's another
Warrior,
example.
warrior huddle,
Right.
So yeah, I think we're pleased, Debbie, with this review and focus on enrichment and challenge. I think that's the consensus I get anyway. And I do think it's important that, and I like the way you said it. We're ready to challenge all students at any time
Right.
when they're ready. I think that's good. Now, you made a comment at the beginning, I may have misheard you, where you said that this was the end of a focus, or this was something,
Oh.
what was your thought there?
I felt it was the one area that we hadn't addressed over the years, where I had a personal goal to expand enrichment and challenge opportunities, extracurricular, where we've had reports about how many clubs, and if you remember, it was a goal, we had
Yep,
increased it by
percentage,
a
yep.
high percentage. And this last piece we hadn't addressed or answered fully
Okay.
was how do we do it within the core? And so I felt that was the last piece that needed to wrap up this whole picture of how do we provide enrichment and challenge.
Obviously, it goes without saying, it's an ongoing.
Right, but it's
Absolutely.
Focus.
also, I think it was a very good decision to put it within the core, so that it isn't extra
Obvious.
time outside, not extra transportation, it's there for every student.
Yeah.
And might this be a nice little time to slip in congratulations to the jazz band for being invited back to Ellington once more?
16th time.
Yep.
How much?
16th trip to
16th?
essentially Ellington as a finalist in the essentially Ellington High School Jazz Competition.
Tina?
That would be a great time.
Again, second Bevy's congratulations to the jazz ensemble. I did want to ask you though, I mean, this is thorough, I'm very happy with it. I think it is exactly what we were discussing at our school committee goals, planning session. Were you struck when you went through by anything that we could do better within the classroom
Actually,
in this area?
I sort of had the opposite. I felt that if somebody had ever asked me that question, I could speak to it. But we didn't have it memorialized anywhere.
Yeah.
And I had the opposite reaction. I thought, this is
I was
great.
just curious.
This is great. At first, it was like, how are we going to collect this? Because it is a moving target. I mean, there will be another opportunity added tomorrow or a different way that, I mean, we saw one of our teachers sitting in the back, it's a middle school teacher, and she might think of a different way tomorrow to enrich and challenge. So it's never going to be the be-all and end-all, the period at the end of the sentence, like this is what we do, period, and this is what we're going to keep doing, because we're not those people anyway. But I had the opposite. I felt like this is a great way to collect everything we do and how many different ways that we do it. And I felt very proud that we have so many ways to enrich and challenge kids in the core curriculum. So I don't see that we have a need to add more, other than there could be better, and they will discover them tomorrow. So by September, they may say, when we're doing this, I think I'd rather do that, and that's a better way to challenge them in my subject area. So it probably will always be added to and maybe edited a little bit, but I think overall, there was more on here than I expected.
I think it's
When you
very
really
impressive.
write them all down, I had a moment of, this is great to summarize all this in one place.
I found it really helpful.
I don't know of anyone that doesn't provide enrichment and challenge in their classroom, no matter what they teach or whatever grade level they teach. I don't know of anyone here that doesn't. So I don't see that, other than, I would say everything we ask people to do, they do, and they do it really well, and they embrace it. So I don't think there's a single teacher here that you could go to that says, no, I don't provide enrichment challenge, I just deliver my, it doesn't exist here, so.
I think what's maybe even more meaningful, though, is your comment as superintendent that any student who's ready for challenge, we will find a way. And I think that's a good goal. I think that's a good ability if we can deliver on that. I think that's the right philosophy.
Well, I think
So-
it's being played out, I mean, the second year in a row on the AP honor roll, and largely because that opportunity has been increased to a wider amount of students.
Right, and
Yeah.
we're never sending the message that you can't.
Can't, right,
Which,
exactly.
we used to make those judgments in the old days, where we had whatever formula, and it was like, you can if you want, and we're not gonna offer it. And I think that philosophy that you see so concretely for AP entrance, through Diana's leadership, you also see right down in kindergarten. We don't assume that, and I think those of us who've been teachers all can remember that student who was plugging along, doing fine, then all of a sudden they came on fire about something, and then they became the leader in that area. And that's what we want to be ready for, that we don't pigeonhole anyone or assume that they can't, because they'll surprise you the next day.
So let's just take as a little to-do, all of us, to think about how we continue to publicize all the good things that are going on in this philosophy. And I don't know what the right way is. Maybe it is a teaching and learning highlight. But I just think we need to continue to,
People need to see this, yep.
people need to see this. I think
They
that's the
really do.
sense of the.
They really do.
Okay, so we'll take that as a thought, if that's all right, and I'm just gonna keep pushing us along, if the committee's okay with that, with our full agenda tonight. So this is not a bad segue, I don't think, Deb, to the superintendent's mid-cycle review.
Why not?
And, Janet, we had another one on our desk here when we
I
arrived. Is that
gave you
an
another one
update?
because it's just a
You gave me-
formatting. When you get to the bottom of page 2.
Yep.
And it says the instructional rounds team divided into 8 smaller groups.
Yep.
I didn't hit return on a couple of the questions, so there were 2 together, so there were only 6 in your first. And now there are 8 magically. So before I left the office, I hit return twice.
Excellent.
And got a better product.
Okay.
Imagine that.
Thank you.
So we just need to replace that one
That's
page,
all.
actually.
That's correct. Yep.
Okay.
If you have notes on your other pages, just,
Oh, yeah,
well,
'cause-
page 2 and 3, because it does go over to the next page. The correct one should have 8 focus questions.
Right, I understand.
Got it.
So I want to start by saying, several years ago, this committee, I think it might have been Bruce, said, what is one way that we think would be helpful to provide us with your view on your progress would be to center your thoughts around 3 themed questions. What am I really proud of? What am I working really hard on? Which doesn't mean I've accomplished it, but what am I been working really hard on? And what challenges do I face? And I think that has proven to be much more helpful in so many other realms beyond just my evaluation. So I want to say that has really worked for me and allowed me to also work with others to summarize where you think you are. Because pretty much anything you want to say about your work as an educator or educational leadership, really, whether you think it's something you're really struggling with or something you really have done well with, they are going to fall into those 3 questions. So I just want to say that's worked pretty well for me. So as you know, the purpose of the formative mid-cycle review, which for me is mid-year, is to foster productive dialogue between me and between you as a committee and individually regarding how I'm coming along in my role. So this year, in the last year, I had in my summary that I was really proud of very specific student initiatives that offered different levels of student leadership and opportunities. This year, I had a great discussion with myself about what to put down.
How'd that go, Deb?
It went fine, because I'm a captive audience.
Good listener.
Yes, in that case, I'm a good listener. But I kept coming back to what really struck me the most. And so I sort of took everything else out and went back to my first thought, which is that I really am so proud of the positive culture and climate in every one of our schools and across the district, because that cannot be taken for granted, and it doesn't come lightly and without a lot of work. And you know, Amy and I know Bill networks with people in other districts, and we see them all the time, and I know you do as a committee, and that is so rare of people that we know that work with it are really struggling with some climate issues, with the culture, not being able to change a culture, or challenged by the culture, or not fitting with the culture. All of these things that really a lot of us spend a lot of time on. So I would say that sustaining the positive culture that started before me, and sustaining that in a fairly large organization for us, 5 schools isn't big for a district, but if you say an organization that employs more than 450 people, that has 5 separate buildings or plants, that requires all those people to stay on the same page with the same philosophy and coming together and working together, that is no easy task. And so I'm very grateful for our administrators, our faculty, and our departments, because everybody contributes to that effort. But I think that every single thing we do, and I said every effort, every communication matters, whether it's something small or something large. Every daily interaction, every long-term planning thing that we do here at this table, that we do with our administrative team. So whether it's a huge multi-year planning initiative, where are we going, what's our umbrella, or whether it's a conversation I had with somebody this morning, every single thing, I think, matters in sustaining that positive culture and climate. And even if we are all together on the same page pretty much like we are now, there's still such a large variety of needs of our staff, of our students, of our parents in the community. And it's quite complex understanding the greater needs, the myriad of needs, the individual needs. And I try to keep that in mind. So even if I'm talking to one parent on the phone about an issue they have. It's still in the context of who we are as an organization and how do we go about solving those problems and maintaining that positive relationship even if there's a concern. So that's why I put that in as what I'm most proud of, because for me, being 5 years in at this point, to sustain that positive culture, I know it's taken a lot of work. I certainly feel that I put a lot of effort into it, but so does every single person that works in our organization. And I harken back to my opening day speech, which is the book that I had read, A Good Man by Mark Shriver, and he talked about his dad feeling that you have to be great in the small stuff every single day. And I think that's so true of educators. We have to be great every single day in those small moments, never mind the big stuff. So so in summary of that whole concept, we have, I think, very high standards of professional practice and high expectations for our kids. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when we're talking to people in other districts, we come away with, we would never, we have a Foxborough standard. So now we started talking about the Foxborough standard. That might be fine over there, that might be fine in the next town. It is not up to the Foxborough standard. So the fact that this idea of the Foxborough standard has become part of our professional lingo is my source of pride, because that is how we look at everything, and not just what would be acceptable today in public education, what are most people doing. It's whether it's, I'm so proud that we have a Foxborough standard, and that really guides our decisions, it fine-tunes our team, and it guides everything we do for children in terms of quality. But specifically, I did want to mention that, as you saw tonight, our technology initiatives continue to astound. That's the only word I could think of. And it wouldn't be possible without that reinvented infrastructure that can now support everything. And we have a full complement of a very talented tech team, including our integration specialists that can support teachers. Such exciting things are happening. Every single day, it's amazing. I already mentioned the new Exploring Computer Science course. That's been a personal goal of mine for 2 years. It's taken us 2 years to find that high school curriculum and to get things set up, and we're now already starting to talk about how we're going to plan for the second course. And will it be a second course, or will they be able to, after this one, go right into AP Computer Science? Actually, both avenues are possible. We're not sure yet which one is the better option for us.
Would that be, I'm sorry, AP Computer Science through virtual high school, or are we thinking of potentially, I know you're still working on it, or offering
It could
that
be,
as
it
an
depends how many
in-classroom?
kids are interested in it.
Cool.
If it's just a few kids, then it could be through virtual high
I'm
school.
just
If we've got a core group of kids, we may offer it here.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll see. We'll see how many enroll this year,
Yeah.
and then where we're going with that.
I've heard some really positive things from parents
Great.
about that.
One of the mistakes, though, that a lot of high schools do, because that's been the only deliverable curriculum, is they just say, this is what we offer. And we know that if you're a student who's maybe the child of a computer scientist or people who are in that field, you maybe can do that.
Yeah.
But most of our kids aren't.
Right.
So they need that introductory prerequisite course where they're exploring computer science principles and set themselves up for further learning if they want, but not say, I can't start with an AP course and the subject I'm had.
Well, this is why I was asking Sue Carl at the last meeting what their readiness is for many students. I think to Tina's experience, I think we're going to see a lot of interest. How many will be able to fit into their schedule, I understand, but.
Exactly. I do too.
I think, well, I hope it'll be as popular as our engineering
That's
course
what I'm
was
hoping.
its first time out of the gate.
We
So
shall see.
We'll see.
Another long-term project, as you know, we've been working on our program to bring international students here in Foxborough, and nothing to do with us. We had to wait for Homeland Security to clear our CEVA certification. That didn't happen until the fall, so we did finally get our CEVA certification in the fall. We have completed our marketing materials, and we are now, all of that's ready. They have started recruiting, and now we're doing communication materials, and we do expect to welcome our first student or students in September. So we'll see that.
We will definitely have one. Is there a possibility we'd
We
have
don't know
more?
yet, it's early.
Oh, okay.
We'll know by probably July, around the month of July, when they confirm.
Is it
We
still-
have at least one student who's expressed preference for Foxborough, but they haven't finished vetting that student, so I can't really say.
Is that still China? Wasn't it China last
Oh,
year?
mostly China, but it could be
It could be
anywhere in
anywhere?
the world.
Okay.
The majority of students through this program come from China, but not
That's
all.
what I thought. Okay.
Not all. And then I do want to mention, as part of my pride, is that our town-school relationships continue to be strong and collegial and collaborative, and they are built on trust and communication, and again, you can't really underestimate the importance of that. And I think that actually our recent advisory committee hearing for our school budget, I think that's a classic example of that, because I think it was a really good exchange
Yeah.
back and forth. They have good questions. We learn from when we're there. And I'd say that showed the type of relationship that we have, that you might not be in the know about everything, but we should be able to answer that with transparency and honesty and have people come away having their questions answered.
I got a lot of good feedback from that, from people on that I know.
So, second question, what am I working really hard on? So this year, I'm working really hard on my professional practice goal, which is about targeted leadership development. So while I did a lot of reflecting this summer and felt that we're doing a lot of informal things, and I certainly worked very directly with all of our people, as often does Amy, and what are we doing for developing our educational leaders in the district, whether it's, I mean, we're talking about teacher leaders, but we're also talking about our administrators, our coordinators, our directors, our department heads, and what are we doing for them, other than what we do every year in the summer. So because I've been giving that a lot of thought, and I think that's a huge responsibility in education now, it's probably our most important role, is what are we leaving behind? Are we leaving a strong, well-developed leader with a thought process that is solid, that is based on our foundational philosophy and our core mission and vision, or it's just people who can do the job? So that's what we've been working on. That's what I've been working on. So what I did was set up a more formal and structured approach called instructional rounds, and I think I talked about that when I shared my goals back in the fall. It's a structured approach to inquiry about practices throughout the district. So I didn't start by introducing, here's what I want to go find out about, do you want to join me? What I really said was, here's an opportunity, here's what instructional rounds are. You can participate if you want, you don't have to participate if you don't want. And what is it you'd like to know more about in the district? So we had such great brainstorming, if you remember back in the fall, such great brainstorming about what is it they were curious about. If they only are a high school, say, department head, what do they want to know about what goes on before? Or is there a practice we've been doing and we're saying, do we really do that to the extent that we want to, or that we think we should, or that we need to? And so they basically brainstormed all these different areas they were curious about. And I think we ended up with about 12 or 13. Then they picked their top 8 and they divided themselves into the area they're most interested in, engaged in this structured approach to inquiry. And our intent is to acquire a deeper understanding about different approaches or methodologies that we implement across grade levels and to identify best practices to share in the future. So we're studying the things we want to know more about so that we can turn around and share it and hopefully grow it with more of a wider audience. So we meet every 6 weeks, and each group reports out what have they seen, what have they observed, and what are they still wondering about, and then what is going to be their focus for the next 6 weeks with this topic. So far, everything we've picked is sort of meaty, and they're not changing topics. So they didn't pick something so small that they could go maybe a couple of times around together and say, okay, we've got the answers. No one is there yet. So they have that opportunity. Do you want to switch topics? Do you want to stay? No, we're not done. So the more we talk, the more questions we have, the more we go and visit. So my group in particular is looking at flipped learning. And our point really is to facilitate a broader understanding, not just of what we do, but why we do it. And that's what's going to sustain us, is understanding the why. So just to give you the topics, I won't do the questions. We all have focus questions. And one of them is the first group is on document-based questions, which is a certain instructional technique. It's used in social studies, English language arts. We've got a group looking at what does that look like in the middle school and high school, and are they doing it the same? Or do you have different techniques? How can we learn from each other? What does the progression of our inclusion practices look like pre-K to 12? And often you'll see where there are differences and where there are commonalities. We're looking at levels of expectation and rigor. That is a very complicated topic. And if you're thinking about rigor, and just so you know that we're very reflective, and it doesn't always say, let's just find good things and then celebrate it. Our questions are, how do the levels of expectation and rigor compare across all levels in regards to both regular and special education? Is there a difference between what we state versus what we do or what we accept?
It's a heavy one.
That's a meaty question. And how are expectations and high levels of rigor communicated to our students, and how are those executed in the classroom? So that's a pretty meaty topic right there. We're looking at the role of educational assistants. These are people we rely on tremendously in our district to meet students' needs. And they have their own feelings, and I've asked them recently, when do you feel you're well-served in your role, and when do you feel you're not asked to do as much, that you have the power of doing more? So they actually have weighed in a little bit of when they feel they're used effectively and when they feel they don't, and we have people studying how our educational assistants are used to effectively support student learning. When it comes to world language, what are the expectations and use of the target language in world language classes across all grades 1 through 12? Amy's in that group. So they're actually collecting data on how many minutes or instances does the teacher use the target language, and getting some actually encouraging results.
And two, there was, as you know from approving the budget, as far as the textbook adoption, and really looking at how is that playing out in the classrooms across the district at all levels.
And that should help with the vertical integration too.
Totally.
That is, it is an issue for students as they go from grade to grade, and particularly from jumping from middle school to high school, there can be, a little bit of a gap. So I think all of these questions, I had written ensure continuity throughout next to them.
Exactly.
I'm so impressed with all of these. Continue, sorry, didn't mean to jump in.
No, it's okay. We have a group of high school people looking at how are the needs of mixed ability classes or groups addressed across high school courses. So that actually harkens back to what we just said about enrichment challenge. So if we've got a lot of mixed ability groups, how are different departments or teachers accommodating that in the classroom? And they were already discovering lots of new ideas, like that, to say, wow, I teach this subject. I thought my core subject, it doesn't really matter which, was sort of unique in its own animal. Now I'm seeing you're doing something in a class that's completely different, and wow, I could do that. So that group has been pretty excited about what they've been seeing across the high school. A group that I'm in is studying flipped learning, or the flipped classroom model. How is it being used? Where is it being used? How does it change the learning dynamic? And what are some best practices? What are some things that have worked or things that have not worked? And last but not least, what tools or strategies do teachers use to effect student collaboration, K-12? So we want students to collaborate with each other as a 21st century skill, so they can go on to college and career, knowing how to work together. But what are the tools or strategies teachers using, and what's working and what's not? So we can say, people that have tried this, maybe not so much. So we've got 8 really exciting topics, and we're going to come back in June at the end of our year with a full report on what we've learned from each group. And one of the things that I'm going to ask them to do when we meet next time is, as a summary, to write a vision statement for that area. So what is our vision statement for flipped learning? Because that will help guide us in the future. So that's going to be actually, it sounds like writing a summary statement, and it is, but now given everything you've learned and seen, what's your vision? What is a vision statement you could come up with for the area that you've looked at that should be the umbrella? We'll see. Well, what have I found most challenging? So this is not news to you because we discussed it thoroughly during the budget process, but it has been quite challenging reacting to the growing needs of students in the areas of mental health, social, emotional, and behavioral dysregulation. Well, I don't need to go into that. We've covered it, but it's challenging for me, not only in terms of worrying about students and their families and what do we need to be doing, but it requires a flexible and nimble response. And within the confines of a fiscal year budget, it's not always easy to be nimble or to be flexible. So what do we do when students move in the middle of the year? How do we accommodate that? How do we find the money to have a staff member? What can we do without? So you don't want to say, we're done, the store is closed. We have to be able to respond to the needs, but being nimble and responding to it and responding quickly and not letting a child who has additional needs sort of disintegrate in front of us is definitely challenging. And you can see through the budget that those needs have trumped our budget forecast as well. And then where's my, hold on.
It was on
Then
the
I
one.
attached the update on the
one,
goals, which
yeah.
I didn't on the new one, I'm so sorry.
Oh, no.
I've already thrown my other one away.
I'll give you
Mine's in my
So I gave you an update on where I am with my individual goals. Not gonna belabor this, my professional practice, the targeted leadership development instructional rounds. We've made significant progress. Amy and I are working together for the student learning goal. We have completed the report on our ELL program and where we are and what we need to do. We've submitted to the Department of Ed. They tentatively approved that report, but they want more they want to wait and get more specifics from us as to make sure that we follow through with providing the extra .5 ELL teacher that we have in the budget. So they're sort of waiting for that period at the end of the sentence to show that we are sincere about supporting that, but as you know, that comes with the town meeting and the budget. So we plan to provide that for them at that time, but we will summarize by the end of the year everything we've learned through that. Computer science, significant progress, and that we have the curriculum and the course identified. And we are going to run the computer science clubs again in the summer, and we've been running them throughout the year in the schools, after school. My communication goal for district improvement is to expand. Every year I try to think of something new to expand outreach and communication. So what we have is, I did create the Twitter account. It was launched on October 19th, and I will say I'm enjoying it more than I thought I would. I learn a lot, and it's not hard to find things to share or to post or to celebrate. And while I had, I would say at this point, I would say meager goals at the time, I am running right along with that. The active RSS feed on the main website, we have Twitter, it says follow us on Twitter right on the main website. We are hoping when we get a better platform, which I can't do anything about right now, but when Aaron switches to a different platform, which he's investigating for our main website, we'll be able to have an RSS feed for ongoing things, if we want to put little videos up or whatever it is that we want to put up. And we are still working, as you know, on the outdoor athletic complex at Foxborough High School. Specifically for this year, we want to finish the concession stand, so I put some progress because we have a plan. It's on CIP, but it has to go through several steps, as you know. And we have assessed the feasibility of CIP for the 8-lane track build, included that in a future CIP summary of the year after. So things are coming along.
Comments, thoughts for Debbie?
I was struck again by how much your memo summarized a lot of the things we talked about during our strategic planning. So I feel like we have, you know, our school committee goals, your goals, our strategic plan, our technology plan, that we're all working towards a common goal. Working, sync is a good word. That's a, and I think Aaron used the word synergy. That there's a really good forward progress feeling when I read this. So.
Others, Steve?
Yeah, Deb, I was just impressed and caught, you know, about the instructional rounds you're working on. In Six Sigma, there's an exercise called the 5 Whys.
Yes, I love that.
Right, and that really helps you get to the heart of a problem. And one of the things I heard over your presentation just now is that you're a collaboration machine. You know, you've
I'm going to tell my husband that.
You know,
wait a minute.
Wait a minute. No, you know,
the next time I tell a story that's too long.
Now, you've got the staff
Yes.
collaborating
That's when
with
you do
you on this, either voluntarily
you.
or or not, if they choose not to participate. But you got a good crowd in there, and there's that saying where you have my hands, but now you have my head too, and that's how an organization works, right? And that must, in some way, come into value for the taxpayer with retention of staff and the money we invest in personal development and the way we hire people. We don't just go for the lowest bidder, if you will, for hiring. We hire to, as you said, the Foxborough standard, and there's a lot of value to that. I think to at least this school committee member and probably everybody else here on the board, but. I think that collaboration is really important because you're all talking to each other and not living in a, castle up here where the other schools are down there, like other districts.
Really appreciate.
Have you seen the part of the building that her office is in? I think
the
it is a
paneled
castle.
walls
It
and the
kind of
marble
is a
floors and
castle.
all that. Yeah, that was from the renovation.
Oh, it is a basement. Okay, it's a castle basement.
Let's go in the loading dock door. That's what I always say. The one that looks like you're delivering paper.
Yeah,
But
no,
I really appreciate your comments.
Absolutely. I make things funny sometimes, but
And I made it funny, but I think I
But I'm
appreciate what
serious,
you
you know.
said. I know
I
you
really am,
are.
Deb.
And I appreciate that because what I hope to get out of this is we have so many talented people here.
Yeah.
And my goal is if we continue to develop them, then we're getting the best and the most out of them that we can. So where you might get here, which is some other people would say, that's terrific, we might get here.
And that's what we need to do is.
You want to utilize them to the full effect,
But
yep.
thank you very much.
It's been
Thank
really
you, Bruce.
interesting.
Sure. Other comments?
Good.
Keep going.
Yeah, I will just add, I think this is very thoughtfully done. I was sitting here thinking, I know how you spent your February school vacation.
Yes, the school committee back.
There is no vacation.
But I think you put a lot of thought into this, and how you word it and what you focus on, and I think it's reflective of the style and strong skill set you bring, so. You know, things that mention a lot, or meant a lot to me, you know, you still talk about great to greater, which we've had since day one with you, and you sustain that. High standards of professional practice and high expectations for student achievement, which has been a focus for us. Steve mentioned collaboration, you've got ongoing communication. Hiring strong, I've told you, I think that'll be your legacy is, you know, all of this, the Foxborough Standard is started and led by you, but has a lot to do, as we've often said at this table, with the people that you surround yourself with, so, as Bevy said, just keep going.
I feel really lucky and blessed to be surrounded by such talented people.
Okay, could someone please wake Mr. Yukna and tell him that it is time for him to provide a budget update?
This is going to be relatively quick. Really only two major changes on this budget update statement. One is that we're going to mine a little bit more money out of the fuel account because of the favorable rates. Last time it was 25,000, now we're up to about 50. And what we've used those funds for really is to address a few extraordinary items from a maintenance point of view, typically things that we try to wait to the end of the year on, but quite honestly couldn't in this year. One of them has been an ongoing problem at the Ahern Middle School with a vapor containment issue within the tile floors. And I think you may have heard it in different ways. People always felt that it was a substance coming through, an unhealthy substance, but actually it was just a glue that never dried, or really dried because of the way the flooring was done. So we took two classrooms during the Christmas break and stripped them totally out and tried this new product which basically sealed the concrete and then rebuilt it all the way back up in new tile floors.
Wow.
And so far it's working well, but we really need to get to the spring when we get the real moisture change to see. But we do think it's the solution. It's not a cheap solution, but we don't have, it's not like we have to do the whole school. There are a series of rooms that we'll have to do over time, but I think, you know, at least now we've got the track to get through that.
And they're more if you look at, if you're at the front of the building looking at the circle, it's the rooms to the right, which is more toward wetlands. So,
Right.
yeah, I'm just gonna reiterate what Bill just said, because it might pass the ears a little lightly. This has been tested many, many times, and I know it keeps coming back up for question. It is wet dirt. That's what it is wet dirt. That the sealant needs to be a little stronger so that if the damp dirt moves up, it stops. So it's wet dirt, people. That's what it is. It's not mold.
Yeah. You can literally in some of these rooms, well, in the two that we did, you could pull, an individual could pull the tile up because the glue never dried. And that's what was been pushing back up was the glue with obviously any materials that got on the floor. And that's why it looked like a dark surface area. But as I said, those two rooms look actually very good right now. And we're not seeing any moisture coming through. The product that we bought in this thing has a 10-year warranty from the manufacturer. They did the testing. They designed the spec for the actual product we installed in, which they do area by area. So I'm very comfortable we've got a solution. The only other thing that I'm really hoping for is and I really won't have a better view on this for probably another 30 days, which really is within our utility areas for heating and electricity. As you know, we've done a lot of programs on LED lighting and, with obviously the mild winter. But two other things that have been kind of pushed on us from our equipment maintenance side is that we have two more vehicles that our garage is being pushing us to say that we have to take them off the road as soon as possible. So, and one's on the the maintenance side and
Not
the other-
school buses.
No. School buses were in very good shape.
Yeah,
But
just for clarity.
you know, as you know, almost all of our vehicles were hand-me-downs from other departments. And so we did acquire one new pickup after they took that off just recently, and what I'm looking for is one more maintenance vehicle. So again, as soon as I have the resources from the accounts that I can mine internally, just in utilities, I don't want to touch anything else, but that's one of the things I will be going after. And that's basically it.
Great.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the latest budget summary report.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion on that motion? All those in favor? Thank you, Bill. Second reading of policy JKAA, physical restraint of students.
Yes.
Would someone like to make a motion to waive the second
I
reading?
would be delighted to make the motion to please waive the reading, second reading of this policy.
Okay.
Because the changes made in it have been dictated by state law.
And Tina or Bev, as our policy subcommittee, do you want to make a comment or two just about what this was about again, for anyone curious?
Yeah, just, briefly, as you know, Dr. Einzel came and helped explain the reason for the changes. The state law has changed. It went into effect on January 1st of this year to ensure that restraints were not being used throughout the state in any way that was unreasonable or unsafe to students. This is consistent with what we were doing in our district anyway. It does make the language of the policy more specific. I think someone who is concerned about this practice would get a very good sense of when it is appropriate and when it is not appropriate to use this kind of restraint, and that it is only for safety purposes, as Dr. Einzel explained to us all, explained in meetings with me, and Marilyn actually sat in on the policy subcommittee meeting. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add, Marilyn?
No,
So,
she was very thorough.
and when we had our first reading, the only change we made was actually a grammatical one on the first page, changing an R to an is.
And as you pointed out earlier, Tina, when we were reviewing minutes, it's really not, no longer will it be called the physical restraint
Right,
of
that
students
is the
policy.
other significant change to this policy, is the title. It's restraint prevention, which really goes to the heart of the state statute and also our practice in the district of trying to prevent the use of restraints, except in the most necessary set of circumstances, which thankfully doesn't happen often in this district.
Any further discussion? If not, does anyone want to make a motion?
I think so we had a motion
Oh,
to
we didn't vote.
waive the reading, but we need a second on that.
Thank you. I'm so anxious to get
Did
it.
you? Sorry.
You and me both, Bruce.
So anyway, I second Beverly's motion to
Waive the reading. Thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Now we have to accept it.
Motion to accept as presented the new restraint prevention policy file, JKAA.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Thank you.
5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
for
you,
all your
Tina.
work.
Thank you,
Thank you
Bev.
all.
You guys did a great job.
And thanks for subbing for me there.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you again to
So I can
Dr.
educate
Einzel for
myself.
helping us understand the ins and outs of this policy. We're very, I think, very lucky as a district to have her on our team as well.
So now I would entertain a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing negotiation strategies with union personnel, specifically Foxborough Maintenance Workers Association.
I'll make that motion.
I will second it.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Aye.
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 The chair says aye, and we will return to open session, I'd guess, in about 10 to 15 minutes.
Do we formally open this meeting?
Sure.
I don't remember. I'd like to motion that we reconvene our school committee meeting
Thanks, Frank.
Just turned it on.
of February 22.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so the committee, along with Mr. Yukna, Ms. Spinelli, and Dr. Bertos, just went through the contract renewal for the Foxborough Maintenance Workers Association. I'd like to thank Mr. Yukna and Ms. Spinelli for their work with the maintenance workers and thank them as well and their representatives for putting together what I think the committee thought was a fair and reasonable and good contract for the period. Is it 2015 to 2018, Bill? Is that
Yes.
right?
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
2018.
Would anybody like to make a motion with regard to that contract?
I'll make a motion that we accept the contract as presented and reviewed tonight.
I will second that.
Any further discussion on the contract? All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous approval, with thanks to the Maintenance Workers Association.
Thank you to the committee.
Other matters?
Well, I put a few things in your packet, but one of the important things is that at the last meeting, we had anecdotal verbal affirmation of the MSBA project, and I put in there that we have it in writing, that we have officially been invited into the MSBA process for the Borough Elementary School, entering the phase of eligibility and then feasibility. And we are on schedule, as you can see, for a March 30th vote to move us forward to our 270-day window, start of that window. So that was nice to receive the written confirmation of that. You mentioned the jazz band in Ellington. Also, our Foxborough High School Vocal Jazz Ensemble earned first place in the 2016 High School Jazz Festival at Berkeley. That was amazing, but not surprising. And then
This is our first time vocal, he's our
Yes.
new vocal coach.
The new,
new
yes,
teacher.
yes, Brian Raymond, our new vocal teacher. So he's thrilled and
Nice
thrilled to be part of
Exciting.
such a
Feather in
great
his cap
program.
for first year.
And then this really means something to me as both a parent of two way in the past former middle school students and currently as a colleague. But our very own Ted Haggerty.
That's
that's
highlighted
very
on
exciting.
my other.
Yes,
Very
is
exciting.
receiving the Micah Paul Smith Hall of Fame Award for 2016, and that will be
I
awarded
think
in a few
that's-
weeks. And no one deserves it more than him. And my children had him as a teacher. He's pretty amazing and devoted to the kids. And I don't think it's a secret he's retiring this year. So I keep telling him he'd change his mind. But anyhow, he deserves it, and I'm really thrilled for him.
I had
And
that highlighted under my
I
other.
am really thrilled.
Do you
I'm
think there's any
so
way we could get Ted to come here and be recognized?
I think that would be great, because we often so focus on what's happening at the high school in music, but it really does start somewhere.
I'd like to do that if we could.
So I think that would be
Well, this
terrific.
Hall of Fame award certainly is deserving of
Well, I
congratulations.
think so too.
Yes.
I agree.
Unanimous. It's unanimous.
That's what I have. In town meeting tomorrow night, for the people still.
7 o'clock.
Is anyone still watching at home? Town meeting tomorrow night is very important. There are a few articles, but they're all very important to the future of our town, including a home rule petition by our Foxborough Child Sexual Abuse Awareness Committee, of which I am one of the 7 members. And I think that's really something that could really change our community for the better, and I hope people show up to listen to what that's about.
Is that it?
Yes.
Thank you. Tina?
I believe our drama club is in their competition this coming weekend, so I actually think that might be where
That's what-
Mikkel was
that-
tonight, is at
I
rehearsal.
know that's where she was.
And I think they're practicing for our Hearn School students on Friday.
Right.
So that's exciting,
Going on
and a
to
nice
theater.
continuity, getting some of our middle school students who are
Yes.
interested in drama to continue and continue to improve our drama club, which is exciting. I know we talked about the Essentially Ellington competition, but, looking at the list, I just want to point out that Foxborough's, I don't know all of the towns on here, but some of them, cities on here are Seattle. I mean, Lexington, Massachusetts is a much bigger community than us. Seattle's on here twice. Raleigh, North Carolina, Miami, Tucson. And a couple of the other schools are actually creative and performing arts schools.
That's what I was.
So
That's right.
And that's
it's-
Sun Prairie, Wisconsin.
I think
Those
3 of
and the
them,
two-
Jazz
yeah.
House Kids.
Yeah.
Well,
Triangle Youth
it's nice
Ensemble.
to see those schools keeping up with ours.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yes.
Well said, Steve. But it bears pointing out
Congratulations
again.
to them.
It really does.
Foxborough Standard, they're raising their bar.
Everyone keeping up with the Foxborough standard, people. That's a
Give it
good
your
one.
best shot.
So those are
But
my
yeah,
two
I
points.
thought the same thing.
Yeah.
There's at least 5 who are actually performing arts theme-focused schools.
Absolutely. So we should be very proud.
Mrs. Lord?
Well, my
I'm good friends with him.
I started teaching with Ted Haggerty in the Ahern School, so when I read that award for him, my deeply proud congratulations to him.
Yeah, agreed. Thought the same thing. Not that I was teaching with them at the beginning. Not that part. Anything else, Bobby? Amy?
Nope.
Steve? Marilyn?
Nothing tonight.
Bill? Janet? Joe?
Joe?
Well, the contract I meant to say for the maintenance worker, 2015, it's now 2016.
I know, I was thinking the same thing, Joe.
Right, because we started last spring, but then they had a few people that left or they were ill and they couldn't finish, so we just finished up that. 'Cause they asked to take a break because they didn't have their members available.
Oh, then for our next meeting, will there be an executive session for the teachers and head assistants?
Not yet.
Coming.
Not yet.
We haven't started with them yet.
That's in spring.
What's the next contract you'll be doing?
Teachers and ed assistant. Oh, no, actually.
Extended day.
No, we're doing extended day and we'll be starting with the bus drivers soon. Those are our next two.
What about cafeteria workers? Like,
Yeah, they're good for one more year.
Yeah.
I thought this year, because 2013 was the last time.
See? There you go.
He's unbelievable. He
Um,
knows all his numbers.
Thank the committee for a long night, but I think a productive one.
Lots to celebrate tonight, too.
2 snow days since we were here last. We've experienced nice call on
That's
those
all.
On those dates. I was texting with the superintendent late before one night. She said, "No, I'm pretty sure on this one." I said, and she got it right. She always does.
I don't know. I
little-
was hoping for a winter without any.
Well, don't look at the
Two's
forecast
nothing.
for tomorrow night, people. But
Is it tomorrow night snowing?
It's just going to be rainy or icy.
And then maybe a little rainy ice.
I'm not feeling
Icy
a lot,
rain.
so if there's kids watching at home, I think it might be a little dicey in the
Do your
morning, but just
homework. Do
Be
your
ready.
homework. Do your
wear-
homework
wear
and study for your
boots,
test.
Don't step on the ice and tread and drive carefully.
sounds like we're going to try to have school. Motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting of February 22.
I would like to second that motion.
All those in favor? Good night, everybody.
Good night.
It's been a long meeting.